Hey, it's Shaves, and welcome to another edition of AniTube Digest, where we go over the best and not so best anime YouTube videos to come out this month of January 2023. God, I have so many videos to cover. Jeez Louise. And I watched a couple, and then, if they didn't have a particular thing I wanted to say or bring up or anything, then I classic digest thing. But I still have like 13 or 15 30 plus minute videos that I'll just record later. This is like the first chunk of digest bits, so you'll probably see like a two-part something. It'll be a long one probably. And we're of course going by order by length. So we're starting with Otaku-Vs with the 4chan inspired anime Peepo-chan, which I like Pepe I think is it's trying to play on that a little bit, but I like that it's so they're taking the green text. If you've ever seen 4chan posts be me at the gym, and like it kind of describes like a lot of awkward situations, so it's kind of this like cringe but also slice of life type of feel. But they do have like a segment in the end that's kind of not in the end, in the middle, that's a little kind of left field and what the fuck ish, but very playful and fun. I really liked the polish on this. I also just enjoy that they are willing to do different. And, I've said this before with their Discord thing as well. Although I feel like the Discord girls thing, it also felt something like this will be a potential ongoing thing or something, But I enjoy that, like, this one feels a lot more, here's an idea and we might not do this again. That's okay. Although they very well could with this character. And just the way that it's like just bite-sized stories. I think it's just like 4 or 5 skits, and I like that you can kind of just post one maybe and get viral potential. I don't know. I just the format is appealing and interesting to me. I'm hoping the people over at that site appreciated it at least. I know my roommate is a denizen from there and seemed to enjoy it at least, or at least appreciate it. But yeah, I think it's pretty neat. It's not as like when it comes off as like 4chan, it's gonna be like, oh right. But I think they were very selective with the things they chose, because these sorts of things that are not necessarily, I don't know, I'm not one of 4chan myself, but again, it gives you those things that you get from 4chan of like these increasingly awkward and unusual circumstances, I guess. And they kind of took like a lot of the more palatable ones, I guess. Not that the other ones aren't palatable, I'm not trying to get an argument or anything like that, but I don't know, in a way that just feels a little more universal. And yeah, I think the translation was interesting too. Not like I'm fluent in the language or anything, but I was noticing the way they would translate the language they would use in this green text, where they're very blunt, short sentences, like cutting out a lot of like overly, it's not like a story, it's very rudimentary. I don't know, I'd have to look deeper into it. I think there's something interesting about the use of the language there, and it was reminding me of this idea I've been thinking about for a video. A lot of this helped me with my own video stuff. A lot of these videos I was watching was like, but I was noticing just you have that challenge of wanting to turn this idea of the green text in the Yashike anime with a Japanese performance. How do you translate this sentence into Japanese in a way that also sounds authentic to anime, to what we are normally able to listen to? Because if you just do kind of a transliteration, maybe some people wouldn't notice and kind of maybe not get, they'd be fine. But I feel like I was able to notice with the language choice in particular that it felt that elevated, and there's certain ways that they're certain phrases and stuff that you don't necessarily find in regular Japanese, but you'll find in anime mainly, right? There's which is something you might learn when you get into learning Japanese yourself, is that learning from anime is a strat, but realize this is not how most Japanese people talk, kind of deal. Anyway, yeah, so I think that was interesting. But yeah, and again, all the animation stuff, it just feels very, there's points where it makes sense that it's economic, and other points where it's like that was a good use of of certain things. I guess it's just very well directed, I think, in that way, for what we're doing here. They're not breaking their necks over this sort of thing, which I appreciate. Yeah, I enjoy this. I like seeing it being in a sustainable fashion, so I get to see more of it. Is what I want to say out of that, basically. Yeah, enjoyed it. It was nice. Wanted to cite an AMV from a channel that I think has been making kind of similar stuff, because they title and all the titles and thumbnails are in kind of a similar fashion of the beauty of Bocchi the Rock or One Piece or Puss in Boots Last Wish recently. But I chose this one because I think this one fits well with Bocchi specifically because of the way that Bocchi has those a lot of visual flair to them. I think taking a lot of those clips out of context, I think, is a very good way with this kind of thing where you're just kind of showing off the visuals and showing the show off, I guess. Showing the anime off, which was kind of a thing, one of the prospects or the advantages that I saw with my own AMV. Sorry to make it about me all of a sudden, but the AMV that I put out this past week, that's part of the approach is to get people interested in the show that I'm showing, in the anime that I'm showing. I need to stop saying show because I'm saying showing. But it's because these clips and little snippets are going to be from like episode 5 or 11 or 19 or whatever out of a 26 episode show, and there's probably a lot of visuals that very many people have never seen before. Whereas you take something from a seasonal anime like Bocchi, not to dissuade this show at all, but like if you've seen it, then it's like, yep, there's that shot, yep, there's that shot, this sort of thing. But I do like that the art of animation doesn't, this video doesn't feel like, this AMV, I guess, it doesn't feel like it's only taking the best hits and the most obvious ones. It does have some of that, for sure. But it's taking a lot of the smaller, insignificant shots you might not appreciate at first, but when you have them in this context, you might appreciate them more. Like one shot that stood out to me that they included was a wide shot in the cafe that they work at, and it's from the perspective of the stage, and the characters are very far away at like a table, and there's like a camera lens focus type of shot, and that's interesting, and it just feels very cinematic in that way, even though it's a very mundane, not much happening kind of shot, I guess. So it's including those moments as well as the wacky bits of animation that everyone likes showing off, and that makes it enticing, because it makes people go, what's that show, right? And I think it's part of what made Bocchi succeed through its word of mouth, because it definitely was not one of the anticipated anime of fall 2022. I thought I would consider it was, because I'd heard about the staff and from Saga blog talking about like that's probably gonna be one to watch out for. That's probably gonna be big, and lo and behold, they were right. I don't know. But yeah, like no one had this on their radar the same way, I think. But those visuals and the way that's shared, and you see that online, like, oh, what's that? And it's the word of mouth. It really works out well for it. Anyway, I like this approach a lot. I feel like I've talked about a similar video and a similar channel in the digest years ago that I think I was being really critical about. I don't remember the specific gripes that I had. I feel like this was the exact same thing. Oh, by the way, I was almost not gonna mention the song they used for this is a Asian Kung Fu Generation song. I'm pretty sure it sounds like them, which is great because I'm pretty sure there's a lot of homage and like visual references to Asian Kung Fu Generation with Bocchi the Rock. Something I saw or had seen about, I guess. It just fits right. It's just a great choice for this kind of show with rock band and very kind of youthful and angsty and like, I don't know, it just works really well. So I really like the song choice. And then yeah, just showing off the visuals in this way and just having that as the excuse, like just the edifice of this, I don't know if this is the right word, but just the conceit is great, I think. And I feel like this should be used for other anime that like no one's seen before. But this one's so far this channel has just done very popular stuff like Puss in Boots and One Piece, and but that makes sense because you want to like people to actually watch it, right, and click on it. I couldn't put Brigadoon in my title, for the AMV that I made. Unfortunately, that's just not how it works on YouTube. It's not going to do well if you do that. But yeah, no, I mean, I like this. I just wanted to point out that this concept is great. And I probably have talked about something similar in the past, or cinematic. I don't remember. This feels familiar to me. And I remember being critical of it in the past, but I don't remember why or what specifically they did different. Or if it was different and I just changed. I don't know. Yeah. This was still really interesting to talk about. My throat's already killing me, and it's 10 minutes. This is not good. Dong Chang wanted to put out another video, talk about another video of his with emotions. Dude, his Blink video, I don't know if I talked about it on Digest, but that Blink video did really well for him, like 500,000 views. And he's getting up there in subs, which is really great to see. I think he's such a valuable resource. Very few, I don't know very many animators, never mind English-speaking animators, that are on YouTube like this and sharing their skills, no less. I think it's awesome. I've talked about his channel before, so this might come as no surprise. But I did want to mention emotions particularly because he did give me the term that I've talked about with my patrons, and I've had this idea, and then it was something I alluded to with my my slam dunk video. This idea of funny faces when kind of anime has a tendency to abstract its faces more, and Dongchan says the industry calls those gag faces. Okay, now we have a term for it. Let's cook that. I'm hoping to make a video in that topic at some point. Hate to again plug my own shit. I don't know. It's me. What do you expect? I can do what I want anyway. No, but I really like his stuff, and I liked that he was very specific about, like, he didn't just take this for granted, right? I feel like if you're doing this, I feel like anyone knows that that's how to make a smile up like that. But he actually goes through that step-by-step process and really explaining each of the muscle structures of the face and how it looks that way. And it's like, if you want, and other things. And I think he's just a really great tutorialist, if that makes sense. He's less of a do this, then do this, then do this. It's not overly verbose like that. He's obviously demonstrating kind of assuming you have a baseline know how to draw type of thing, but he's just like, here's some things to keep in mind. And it's like, I recommend doing this, it's accessible, and it's like, you don't have to do it with him type of deal. It doesn't feel like you're not being optimal if you're not doing it yourself. I feel like some tutorials feel like that sometimes. But not like this is a full-on tutorial. It doesn't say tutorial in that way. But I'd say it's like, I don't know, you're gaining that knowledge from him, and so it's feel like you can apply it in whatever way you want it to. Just like with me, I was able to just siphon the fact that they call it the particular thing with he only cited one of these 5 faces that he drew here as a gag face, particularly because it's an abstraction. The mouth is like drawn in a way that's like, it's the one in the top right of the 5 in the thumbnail. It's rounded at the bottom, and then it's really cute. I don't know. I think he has a great. He's opening up a little bit more. Not that he wasn't before. It didn't feel like he was like uptight or something. I don't know. I just feel like it just seems really great. I don't know. I'm excited about his success, and looking forward to more with it. And yeah, I'm very happy I watched this. Check it out. The Masked Man. Look, man. No, I really commend you with like talking about like actually good, with being really constructive in the other videos. I don't want to take that away. I really admired that like an hour-long Door to Fata Morgana video is huge. I think that's awesome. I didn't check it out because I didn't want to be spoiled to that or anything. And I do want to kind of experience that at some point. And then other series that you talked about, like I think you just re-uploaded a Thorfinn video. I haven't seen Vinland Saga yet, and that's another one that I kind of want to take time to do myself, whatever. So I mean, I wanted to check this out. It feels like a more topic-y kind of video, and it does feature this guy Degenerosity, which I've not been familiar with. I don't think You know what? I may have talked about his Naruto in 15 seconds video. I don't really know. Not a fan. I don't know what spurred this on. I guess it's more of just you. I would suspect you maybe wanted to collab with Degenerosity, and just talk about this sort of thing. But it's like, yeah, I hate to say it, but like he really, I think he outpaced you in this one. It was sort of like one of those songs where you get the feature and the feature kind of upstages the main artist a little bit. It's kind of like that. I mean, you can tell that even in the editing, when he switches to Generosity, the editing becomes substantially more quick and variety, and has more of a rhythm to it. Like when he's going kind of stuttering like this, he's stuttering the picture with his voice and everything, and really selling it with the visual. And it's also like inventive visuals. It's visuals that are like kind of surprising or funny and everything. It's such a skill. It's quite the skill. And I certainly don't have that. But I think it's an interesting contrast to see the two differences, because you can tell like Mass Man's I don't know if it's you editing or your editor doing so. I'm not too sure. But yours was a lot more slower. Like you're staying on that image of Blue Lock that looks like they're stinky, but it's, you know, it's like the image where it's like it's like a green aura, but it just looks like they stink, and it just pans on that for like 50 seconds or something, like really long time. Felt like a long time, and just complaining that they stink, that anime fans physically stink, and then saying you don't go to a convention but hearing they stink. I'm like, is this a joke? Like, are you just trying to be like hyperbolic and funny or something? Like, and it's like, sure, we all make fun of the Smash Brothers community for needing deodorant, sure, and that's funny, I guess, but I don't know, it felt like you framed it as like genuine qualms, and then your second point was also a genuine qualm about like sports anime fans not getting the sport, and you kind of keep them. Be like, you don't know, you name 5 positions in a soccer game with Mr. Fan of Blue Lock. But it's like, dude, wait, if anything, like part of what the author of Blue Lock wants, I'm not going to speak, I don't want to speak for him, but what I would imagine, as Inoue would probably, I do know that Inoue is a big fan of basketball, and he wanted his manga to be sharing the passion of basketball. So if people become basketball fans because of Slam Dunk, that's a good thing. It doesn't matter how shallow or like doesn't know how the game or like the positions of the team or whatever. It doesn't matter. Let people enjoy shit. I don't know. It was just a weird qualm to make, like just out of nowhere. And I get like and then sort of, I feel like that's the only 2 points he made. And then to Generosity, he's like, hands the mic over to him, and he actually gives a legitimate like example. And he's like, I went to this video and I saw in the comments that people were unironically, and like he feels visible disgust over it and shows it in a captivating manner. And I'm sorry, he's just better at this. It's like, I don't know. It was just kind of interesting. That's the only reason I wanted to talk about this. It was just the fact that the two sides are just so stark, and it was so interesting. And that like it is a skill to kind of roast people and to kind of like skewer these sorts of things. And it, because it can also be considered like a little too mean-spirited. And I could be wrong of misinterpreting your point, but like towards the end of the video, Massman gives a third point about like gatekeeping and fans gatekeeping certain series and stuff. But like, you gatekeeped earlier in the video? It was just like, huh? And I could be misinterpreting, but it was just strange to me. It kind of came out of nowhere too. And he's like, man, I'm sick of you anime fans. And I was like, is just all the attention getting to him? It's just like is like the amount of comments he sees and the amount of traffic that his videos get, it's just like he's getting the full brunt of the idiocracy of teenagers, of young adults. Like, yeah, no shit, we're all dumb. And like that's what happened. The bulk of the mainstream, this is even just the anime fans. Can you imagine the broader mainstream like trying to invade? Like, this is just what happens. Anyway, sorry to be harsh on that. But I don't know. It just made for an interesting study of like when someone who's guest starring and has a chunk of the video dedicated and they're kind of taking care, you can tell that they're taking care of all of the visual editing and everything. You can actually have a really stark contrast, and the guy featuring can kind of outshadow you on the video. And so I enjoyed the video for his portion. And then I think it was just the image choices you were using, the way it's edited, and just like it. I feel like your tone, there was just something about like, it just seems that you're upset for no reason, or just like you're sick of it or something. Whereas the generosity actually makes like, there's those people who do the greater sign than the other one. Man, I'm sick of those guys. Like, it was specific. It wasn't just anime fans. It wasn't just anime fans, they all stink. Like, it was like, huh? It's like you can have that. It's not an uncommon opinion to have or anything. I'm not saying it's wrong, but it's just, it's like, okay, dude, that's just what it came off to me. I think it's something to learn from DeGenerosity's approach, in my opinion. TheCynicClinic, goated. The Bocchi Rock adaptation, goated. Game recognized game. You know what's funny? I noticed this right off the bat, that I don't know if I'm seeing things or I have or it's something else about Bocchi in particular, but like something about this with Cynic's approach here, it felt a little cleaner. It felt like he really wants this to take off. And obviously, it's finally when like his interests and and it's a popular show actually align, and it could actually do decent numbers for once. I totally get it, but I'm not saying anything was missing or it fell off. Nothing like that. It was just like different, and I don't know. It's just a weird random feeling I was getting where it's like, oh, he really wants this. Not in a way that you were trying extra hard or in particular. I think it was just, you know what? I think there wasn't as many like weird cutaway jokes or just something that it wasn't as like, you don't have as many of that like gut punching stuff. I don't know. I couldn't tell you. But you still have it. It's not like this was like a complete, like a sanitized version of what kind of videos you'd make. Of course not. Although I feel like there's something about this. It feels simultaneously a bit more accessible. I don't know what you did. I have to look at it again. But there's something about it which just feels a lot more planned, calculated, and like targeted, and like really go. And I don't know. I think that's really cool. It's something I noticed is like, oh, I wouldn't have expected that. But for the video itself, yeah, thank you for actually giving the manga some credit and actually talking about Yonkomas in a constructive way. I really did like how you contrasted with Chainsaw Man, not just in the thumbnail or just for the hook, but you actually did kind of follow through with that, even though I think you do have a fair enough point with like the shot compositions largely have to stay the same, but I'm going to talk about it later, but Canipa has had a really good Chainsaw Man video about its adaptation, how they did still manage to find ways to make it unique and specific and kind of its own thing, and not just like panel for panel. The way I think you were kind of centering Chainsaw Man's anime as a contrast to Bocchi, which is totally fair. I think it was a smart play, especially because it's obviously the other juggernaut of that season. It's just the easy comparison to make. Totally. You know what it might be? I'm looking back through it, and it could be that that you're on screen for pretty much the whole video. I feel like you had more cutaways or just like more full screen stuff throughout your other, obviously you're on screen for the majority of all of your videos lately, which has been fantastic, I think. But I don't know. It's just been, I think there might be something to that where I feel like you've maintained more of a contact and more of a consistent through line, and it just feels a lot more tight in that way. I think that it works out really well. I think there was something you mentioned. Oh, yeah. I think it was just the fact that watching this video again, when you having more of an emphasis on the expressions and how the animators were able to have different contribute their own individuality into it as well. It just made me realize that the gag faces idea that I have, it would make sense to reference Pochi to some extent. Probably was the idea I was having. Yeah, I always feel like I do your videos a disservice, or I don't describe them well enough. I just kind of think they're good. I feel like I'm at that point, just because they very much speak for themselves, I guess. But yeah, I think you did really well on this one. But yeah, I'd say that that aspect of something that's like felt really deliberate and gung and I don't know, just really direct, and it was cool. It was really interesting. But then, yeah, I'm just happy you actually did this subject justice of, like, this is, actually looking at the adaptation and everything. I'm repeating myself. But yeah, really great, of course. Glass Reflection's been doing some different stuff this year. And I haven't watched all of it. But he's been very, very frequent, at least this month, with anime news. He's doing the old, the formula that has escaped us all. There is still nobody on YouTube who has at least tried in a very long, in consistent enough fashion, really trying to go for a video format of anime news, because it just goes so fast. I feel like, Misty's tried it. I believe Anime America had done a little bit, stuff like that. And of course, I think the kind of the what's settled into it, and Anime News Network's doing a little bit of this as well, but they're doing a lot of shorts, and they're kind of just dedicate videos to one story. But then it kind of a digest of news, it doesn't do as well, or it's there's something about it. But like, I think Trista did a decent job. At least the first one that I checked out, I just wanted to see if the first one had any commentary on the impetus of it and his idea for it. I think he just wants to have more regular content, which is fair. I certainly know that feeling. Man, do you remember when Digest was supposed to be that? And then I just decided, I'm not, you know what? I'm just going to do it a monthly because I want to make more. And then I didn't. Anyway. But I didn't even know about a lot of these. I like that the stories that he actually talked about were stuff that I had no idea about. That Tomoko Market might get something new, and AX having this specific change in their registration that is causing some consternation. I actually had no idea about some of this stuff. So I like that Arcada is doing a pretty good job with choosing stories that aren't just obvious or whatever, and might actually have some interesting implications to it, and giving enough context that really feels like a news story. It feels like something you're listening to on NPR almost, but not like, I guess not to that extent, because usually they get someone to interview, or it's not like a story or something. But it feels like if you listen to NPR, like the breaking news stuff, or live from NPR News in Washington, they kind of have the news updates, and they just have the one person narrating the events and everything of saying the news, but they're not like going out and, they don't have a reporter with the particular story or anything. But it feels like it was kind of those three segments. And one thing I did kind of notice that I feel like could have been warranted a little bit was it was very dispassionate. His articulation of these news, he was like, some fans see it as like this, but other fans see it like this. And there's no personal commentary from him on what his take on it. I did like that he was like, personally, I've never been to AX, which is fair. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think it was. I thought it was all right. I think he does a decent job with it, but it's like, I don't know how sustainable, or like, I gotta tune in, like, like how ravenous I would be for this kind of content. It's funny. I realized just from talking just now that this is very similar to like Philip DeFranco. And Philip DeFranco, the thing is, right, he has a whole team now, but like he's literally like, he's also been doing this for a long time, like like 13, 15 years now. It's a long time. And he really has polished his formula down, has changed it up a little places, but also just like is way more frequent. He's doing this every day. Not every day. Like right now his schedule is Monday through Thursday. Yeah, Monday through Thursday. I don't think there's a Friday show. And then Sunday is like a recap where he's like going through people's comments and talking and kind of reflecting on that week's news, almost, of the kind of the more popular stories. And that one I like just because like I feel like he's very thorough. I like his opinions and takes and stuff, and there's a variety to it because it's a combination of kind of media news and more political stuff and stuff you may not have heard about. And recently he's been doing more interviews, sit downs with various experts about a particular topic and stuff. So I'm not expecting that because I don't think Tristan has a whole team here. I think it's just him, which is fair. It's just me too, you know. I know what you mean. But in terms of sustainability and the what you gain from this as a channel, I'm not entirely sure. It feels out for true, and I feel like that ends up being a lot of the reason why this sort of thing doesn't work that often. It hasn't historically worked. I feel like this is such an obvious thing, and the fact that we still don't have something like this, and there hasn't been anything that kind of as a regularity, shows you why that's, you know, it's just a demonstration of it's difficult. This news ages very quickly, like it's very old news very quick. It's not like an ongoing situation or something. I feel like there's a lot of dry days. You probably don't have a lot to talk about or something. You know, it's tough. But I did like that he has like half the video spent towards uncut gems of winter. He just kind of cited these two shows. I guess he's doing something different where he is watching all the seasonal anime this time, which is something I guess he doesn't usually do, but now he's trying that to make this big video. I have not checked that one out. I wasn't too interested because it's like, oh, it's just another season of watching everything. And I feel like people have tried that and it's not something I'm eager to check out myself. But I feel like this was something different and something he's doing that's recurring. This is the only episode I've saw, so I don't know what else he stretches the other videos out to. Not in a bad artificial way. I'm not saying that this felt stretched out or anything, but obviously you kind of just chose these three when you definitely could have chosen more, but then decided to fill it with this other thing that's more of from you or from your. It's almost like a mini first reaction, right? Because you were talking. It's like, oh, use this to talk about these two other shows, or that like I had never heard. I didn't hear anything about. But yeah, I don't know. I wanted to talk about it because it's an interesting prospect. I'm interested to see how it goes. I know he did just recently put out a survey asking people what they thought of it. Give me that. Those are my more video nuance kind of takes. But again, I've only seen this first episode, and I'd be willing to kind of check to see the rest of maybe it's kind of feel like, because when you do something regularly, you get a rhythm of like, oh, that doesn't work or that's stupid, and and then normally you change it. Normally, if you'd see, oh, this isn't working, and then you change it. But then, if you're stubborn, if you're stupid, and just don't want to. So just thinking out loud, nothing at all. Just thinking out loud. Okay, John Sirabella, Meteor Blasters, Conman, Jim, Uber. That is the full channel name. I wanted to cite this particular video of Rise of Media Blasters just because I thought it was an interesting choice. It doesn't seem like he's done this style in the subsequently, but this month he started his channel, and he decided that he wanted to share his perspective and experiences as the founder and president of Media Blasters, which was an anime company. It still is. It's, you know, they have their own warehouse and everything. But you know, he's like, I'm a man of many hats, and then he's very candid, personal, and I don't know. I think it's really neat. And John has already taken advantage of him being a YouTuber now to ask him some stuff, and they did a live stream together, talking about Rurouni Kenshin's dub a little bit. But this one he's he's working out and then kind of talking about what was the things that really took Media Blast, what started it, and what really got them going, and what kind of had them take off. I ended up also watching the video of like the anime bubble bursting and his perspective on it. And one of the stories that really took Meteor Blasters like almost completely down, that isn't talked about much, that I had no idea about, that like some family sued their company over a disc that they released because of a trailer that was included on the disc. They had to settle. They figured it out. They didn't, you know, they were able to drop the suit, but like the process of getting those lawyers and the, you know, the legal process cost them like 40-50K, and they got the wind really knocked out of them, which really sucks. But yeah, I think he's a decent storyteller in that regard. It was just kind of funny with this video in particular, where he's just like, you know, putting the weights on as he's talking about it, and then he's still talking as he goes onto the bar and does the reps. I work out as well, and it's just crazy to me that you just kind of casually do it as you're still talking. I don't know. It was just surprising. Yeah. And, you know, I like that he's able to just turn on a camera and do that sort of thing. I think lately he's been doing more of just uploading various material and, yeah, some various stuff of the production things that probably aren't anywhere else. That could be pretty interesting. But yeah, I want to see this conventions and dealers myth versus fact type of thing. Final thoughts on, yeah, some of these. I don't know. This just seems really cool. They're vlogging their trip to OhioCon. I don't know. It's just really neat. And it's cool to see someone in that position on this space. It's really neat. I recommend it. It's pretty cool. New recording. This is the second recording that I do, but I had this other video that I didn't watch in this first batch. I watched in the second batch. Makes sense. Pompo the Cinephile, what's left at the end? It's the 12th day of 12 days of anime that I wanted to shout Ember Reviews for. I didn't watch all 3 hours of video content that he put out in the same 3-week period. Nutso. Yeah, this is really great. I really liked this particular video because I knew he was a really big fan of this movie. Very few people have seen it, have talked about it, so that's interesting. But I liked it, you know, and it really made me want to check it out, I think, with just the editor thing. I would say minor nitpick, and you know what, I get it at this particular context because of the rate he's making these videos at. I feel like with this video, you really only show the same couple of clips over and over. It felt, or the same scene maybe. It did feel like there's certain scenes that you use more than twice. That felt kind of like cyclical, and to me, I get the economics of it. I guess to me, what throws me off on that, or just kind of deflates me a little bit, is not simply that I noticed, but it's more just that it makes the movie feel smaller than it is. Like, it's like you're boiling the whole movie, like, is an 80-minute movie. I don't know how long the movie is, but it's certainly probably more than like the 20 minutes that it feels like you're summing up in the final act, which is really what you were focusing on, I think, in the thrust of the script, and describing the climax of the movie. And it's like, that's all good and makes sense. It just keep constantly bringing that show, you know, having those footage up and then continuing to show it even after you go a little more metatextual and not postmodern. I don't know. That's not really the word. I don't know where I want to say that for some reason, post video, but I say postmodern. I couldn't tell you. But like, when you're continuing to use the similar clips even after the fact, and then obviously at some point you do transition into the whole 12 days and the other clips that you're using from the different days and stuff. I think you sort of recall that it was somewhat different, but it did feel a little cyclical in that way, and dwindled in the size of the movie. I don't know, didn't get me as prolonged excited over the course of the whole, you know. I was excited to first, you know, knew about this concept and everything, and obviously as an editor I would love that type of movie. I don't know why I haven't seen it, but it could have been my 800th, but yeah, seeing it, I was like, okay. But yeah, you know, I really like the point being made towards the end of this, and he ties it into the the 12 days where experiencing life, and it's the juxtaposition of experiencing the real world and living it versus creating art and being in that world and just immersing yourself in it for a ton of hours, a ton of days perhaps, and just that's all you're focused on. Because you get this rush of like never feeling more alive than doing these videos, but you can't say you necessarily hate the other stuff. It's blustery out. If you hear that, I'm sorry. It's very blustery out. It's a doozy. But yeah, like the enjoying normal life, is like, I kind of like having to do the chores every weekend. I control the house, that sort of, and bringing it towards yourself, I think was really compelling. Yeah. And it's just the contrast of that I did enjoy. And I like that this was the one I watched, I guess, because and the idea of like having a theme for the whole 12 days, and then this one you decided not to say anything and let it just figure it out for yourself, was a neat tease, especially for watching the rest of it, which I didn't, but I very well could. But yeah, and this was really neat. This was really cool. And yeah, of course, generally, congratulations on this crazy ass accomplishment. It's nutso. Good Lord. A lot of shit. A lot of stuff. Yeah, very cool. Corridor Crew, Corridor Digital. I don't know if that's the same group. I feel like it's the same. I don't know. What makes an anime great and why Hollywood ruins it? Look, the only reason I checked a video like this out is because it's Corridor Crew. These guys are great. I literally like saw their channel, like what else did they upload recently? And they put out another Animators React, and one of them was like with VeggieTales, and like the guy worked on a lot of Disney films and also on VeggieTales, and so they did like kind of a breakdown on that, and that was awesome. I think these guys are so thoughtful. I love how chill it is. They're just on the couch and they're casually kind of reacting to various animation, and there's various insights and little like thoughtful observations. Like that's so chill. I love that. Especially if like the guest is really like, someone interesting that like, Adam Savage or Aaron from Eager Raptor, everything. Like, I don't know. It's just cool. I just really like that format. This is not really that. It's still the two guys that I'm familiar with, and I think that what they wanted to do was do this as a form of reflection on these live action projects, because they themselves are doing a live action anime type of video. It just seems like some kind of creative outlet thing that they're doing, and they're just trying to make it as anime as possible. So they're observing Cowboy Bebop. They also did Ghost in the Shell, and they did Death Note. And normally they're very thoughtful. And I think there's some good observations. For one thing, one of the things they definitely point out that I think is a very big point that I make in my Dazaki video is clarity. You really want the audience to see everything in a cohesive way, that they're getting they're getting all the information. I really like their observation about slow motion, and this is something that Dazaki did as well, where the slow motion that we know in Hollywood, as they say, is about the dodging of attacks and avoiding getting hit. But anime, Bebop in this instance, but a lot of Dazaki does this a lot with Ashino Joe too, uses slow motion to demonstrate the actual hit, like getting hit, and selling that impact even more, which I think makes total sense. I think that's a really great point. But it's just when they get to the Hollywood part, it's not that great of criticism, because they kind of just say, look at all these characters on screen and don't know what's going on, or I don't know. I think the thing that stood out to me about the Bebop thing that they didn't mention at all is just how dark the footage is. Now in that instance, I think it was a good comparison, because they're comparing exactly the scene that live action Bebop is adapting. It's the same thing, and they do make a point about how long the scene takes, and oh, it's just dragging on forever. They don't make the point that live action Bebop episodes are 50 minutes each. And they're not, I mean, I haven't seen it, but from what I understand, they're not adapting 2 stories in one episode. It's not like Arthur or something. It's a 50-minute version of a 26-minute story, or 20-minute story. 20 minutes, because you don't get, not even 26, 20, maybe even less, probably 20. Really short is what I'm saying. Half the length. And so, like, yeah, and I like that they're saying how in animation you can't pick and choose different shots. You literally have to plan everything. I think that's a very great point. But that just, they didn't say that that's a function of storyboarding. That all of this is planned and storyboarded. Maybe not all of it, technically, because you have various action directors or specific animators that want to influence, do a particular thing or whatever, and all of it's very thought out. Yeah. Whereas this, it's like, movies is a very different art, because while they don't have while they have a bit more freedom and they have more flexibility and everything, they do also have constraints, because there's production time, there's shooting time. There's like going on a set, and literally everyone on set is getting paid by the hour. You have to get these shots, and you can't futz around and do a lot of unless you want to just balloon the budget more. Like, you'll spend more money because they have to spend more time being there. That's why you should do a lot of different things, because you cannot get that shit back. Once you're in that editing room, this is all you have. Sorry, them's the breaks. It doesn't matter how much intention and pre-production and care you put into it. If the shoot didn't turn out the same way, it's, oh well, that's what you got. Hope people like it. It's a lot different from animation, even though animation kind of has that similar problem with with like being unfinished or rushed in a particular way, and they can run up to the same constraints as well, budget constraint, whatever. It's just a different medium, right? That's the thing. It's a different medium, and you kind of have to understand, like, look at the big picture of what they're working with. It's not a one-to-one translation. I don't think that obviously it's a big picture thing, but there was something about this video that just kind of put me on edge a little bit. The fact that they have the couch that they sit in when they have these animators react, they have the nice comfy couch, and they're in their set, whatever, and they're all watching this. They're watching this stuff. Here, they're kind of standing in front of the couch. Like, the couch is center frame, as if they're gonna sit in it at some point. But then they're both standing, like, arms crossed like this, and talking about in the same way. I'm like, can we calm down? It's not like they're like jumping around or something, but like, it made me think that you're gonna move somewhere, do something, right? It's a dumb complaint, but like, that just kind of put me on. I'm like, why are you standing? And I mean, I guess it turns out that like they were on edge because I guess they're being under attack with Nerf guns. There's a guy, like, towards the end of the video, for no reason, out of nowhere, a guy just comes into their studio and like starts shooting them up with Nerf guns, and they all pull out Nerf guns that just fight each other for a few seconds. And it's shot in a very limited way. Like, there's literally only 2 camera frames. It's like, and it was just kind of catching a spontaneous moment in the shoot, which is playful, but it's like, huh? I don't know. It just seemed weird to me. Very strange. I do think the takeaways made sense, but you know what? Okay, but I'm not done with this. I didn't even take notes, and I just somehow remember this video so vividly, and then I can't remember good videos. I can't remember why the fuck am I like this? Why the fuck am I like this? Anyway, when they get to Ghost in the Shell, they're comparing the opening shot to the opening shot of the movie, and they're just criticizing how they have to show the fact that she doesn't have her goggles on, and because it's Scarlett Johansson, and like, oh, the studio, blah blah blah, you have to show the actor's face or something, and Hollywood is terrified of using masks. I mean, I like that point. I think that's fair. I think there's something to be said about suit actors, specifically, in comparing to Japanese media, tokusatsu, the suit acting is an actual performative art that is very specific. The fact that they can, it's a combination really of the voice performances from the Japanese actors who are voicing these characters, but they're not the same as the suit actor who is gesturing what's being said. And the fact that like they can have these really subtle nods and head tilts and like the physical acting on display when you don't have their face is so impressive. It's very emotive. I can't believe it. Every time I've been watching Toku for like over 2 years now, and I still can't believe it. That like how good they are at it. it's really impressive. It's not just about the quality of the suits or how cool the suits look. It really is the body or even the choreography. It's just the acting. It's impressive. Anyway, but I think there's a point to be made. They didn't make that point or anything. But it was just weird that like that's what's wrong with anime adaptations is because she didn't put her goggles on. Like do you want a 1-for-1 adaptation or something? And they're like, I don't know. It's like they show the opening shot of this Ghost in the Shell movie, and it's striking. It's not a bad shot. I didn't have any problem. I'm looking at it, I'm like, what's the problem with that? What, like, and genuinely, and you're gonna find something. You're gonna find something to have a problem with. That's what it felt like. And it's like, let's really fundamentally look at this and find, like, really comb through the whole. It's obvious. Like, what's the pattern here? What's the pattern with the three of them? Episode 1 of Cowboy Bebop, the first 2 minutes of Ghost in the Shell and Ghost in the Shell live action. And for Death Note, they show the opening, like, I think it was episode 3 or 4, like with Light is internal. Their point about comparing the Death Note anime to manga, that's a whole other can of worms. Because it's little nitpicks and things, because it's like, I just want to think about this a little more deeply, right? And have more of a fuller awareness of what's going on here, and not just kind of what's in front of you. The anime. Well, Death Note's a manga adaptation. Death Note's anime is a manga adaptation. The other two, Ghost in the Shell is technically based on the manga, but it's not panel for panel the way. Granted, Araki's directing is great. He adds a lot more to the manga for sure. In a different way. People have criticized it in some places, of course. But like that internal monologue, I think that's a great point to make, that like anime, Hollywood has a tendency to be shy about show don't tell, but there is something to be said for sure, and it depends on the show. It just depends on the show. I think, I've said this in Piss Pirates and other places, for example, I like that Witch from Mercury, for the most part, didn't have any internal monologue with Suletta. I like that we were able to observe this nervous, anxious, like awkward girl and to observe her actions and not necessarily what she's thinking, whereas with Bocchi the Rock, it's almost all internal dialogue because she's cycling through her anxieties and the particular things that make her the way she is, while also having those visual, of course it's visual and everything too, but it felt very explainy to talking a lot and vocalizing every single thought almost. I think it's a case-by-case basis. And to Corridor Crew's credit here, they're taking the Netflix Death Note, which I was expecting, of course, they're going to fucking ream about that one. But they don't. They actually were like, hey, that wasn't so bad. They didn't so bad. They were just like, yeah, so they were just a different approach where they're not using internal monologue here. And also that they're using two different scenes. Like they're using episode 4 when like Light is thinking about how he's going to kill L when he first encounters, like, how am I dealing with this? Versus the first time Light Turner kills somebody and like you see like the Final Destination looking, death and everything. And that's a very show don't tell moment. And they were like, yeah, I mean that they were like, they found a way to articulate that thing without saying anything in the person's mind. And I feel like they kind of squander their point there because it's not a 1-for-1 comparison. I don't know why they didn't, because the other two were 1-for-1 comparisons. I don't know why they didn't take the scene in the anime Death Note where Light first does write that thing, and is there any internal, it's probably because there wasn't any internal monologue in that scene either. And there's no comparable scene to what they're talking about. The point they want to make in Death Note, there's probably no comparable comparison point in the Netflix Death Note, because the Netflix Death Note is very, very different in a way that I think, and they say this too, is like, I like that it was its own different thing. And I don't know if that was him or if it was somebody else that was like kind of giving decent, it was Roger Space. I was watching a live stream of his. He was talking about the One Piece live action, and he's like, most of them are obviously doo-doo, but he was reflecting on it more. And he's like, I at least appreciated Death Note for being completely different. It just wasn't Death Note, which is, okay. But if you like Death Note, it's not okay. If you want more Death Note, I mean, fuck, just watch more Death Note and just watch Death Note again. Like, okay, that's what it is. Anyway, where's I going? But the point I was going to make earlier, sorry that I don't know why suddenly I'm talking about this one forever. What the hell? Each instance was the first episode. They're not going to spend the time to dig through the entire movie, or both, even Ghost in the Shell. You know what? They did bring up 2 scenes in Ghost in the Shell. They brought up a scene towards the end of the movie, so I apologize. That wasn't, yeah. But for the most part, it's like, you're just taking the most earliest scene you can get and just taking that, which, like, I get, like, it's time consuming to go through the whole thing to really find the best example, especially if the show happens to be even 13 episodes, never mind 26. I know that the bulk of the time that I spent, I don't know about the bulk of the time, like probably half of the time I made that AMV was spending time going through literally every episode, scrubbing through for cool shots. And I just I dragged them in a folder, and then I just assembled them that way. Maybe went back and found some other stuff, but for the most part, I really wanted to use the whole show, because it's clear when you're only kind of taking the first episode, at least to me, at least someone who's a little more notice as an editor, right? But yeah, it left some stuff to be desired, in my opinion. I appreciate that they did that they did it, and they were surprisingly more nuanced. I like that they didn't completely trash these certain live action stuff, because it's so cliche at this point. Like, guys, come on. But yeah, I enjoyed it though. I'm not sure how much Kaze Talks will want me to talk about this, because it seems like a very personal thing for him. This is a film that he directed, a short film, The Both of Us, and it's a tribute to The Last of Us, where it's a couple who have broken up and they're sharing their experience with video games and kind of the impact it's had on their lives. Because it's still kind of a cultural stigma. It's not really much of a stigma anymore, but I feel like it's taken a little more for granted, because more kids, it seems that, it's the video games is for kids type of thing is still very prevalent. The same way, animation had to kind of overcome that and is still trying to overcome it, right? But you also have, but I think it's starting to overcome it, because it feels like the majority of people that play video games are adults. At least it seems that way, but I could be wrong. But it's sort of like really trying to encap this idea that it can have an emotional impact. It can personally affect people's lives, not just what's in the game itself, like, oh, this character really resonated with me or something, but really like, when I played that game at that time, I was in a dark place, or I was in this part of our relationship, and this affected me in some way and this game was involved somehow. I think that quiet, intimate drama that Kaze kind of lets us in on here, I think was really interesting. It wasn't just like, hey, I like video games, or anything like that. And I read his thread as well, so that's what gets me a little like, I'm not sure how much you'll want me to talk about it here. And he speaks about how, despite all of the praise he got, and it was a good time for everybody in the app he made, he's proud of it. Just the sheer amount that it took out of him, the creative burnout, really affected him. And it's kind of what motivated him to start his channel. He just needed to get out of it. Just had to figure something. I think he spoke at one point of resenting it at some point, or just because he's sick of it. And then had it unlisted. And just now made it public. So again, I hope you don't mind if I share this a little further. For what it's worth, I don't know how much this will, because here's the thing. I have exactly the same project like this. Same problem. It's not the Naruto video that took a lot out of me and really emotionally affected me in a way that's harmful, I guess. It's this art, and I'm proud of it and I love it, but it really psychologically damaged me. And it's at least what I was reading from your thread, it seems like in a similar place. And that's nothing to do with the video itself. I should say, the thread I think is a good companion piece with this, because it's something that I can relate to as a creator that has a similar thing that I've been meaning to share as well. I'm intending on sharing it sometime this year, my experience with that. But so I related to that a lot. And so watching it, I'm like, yeah, there's a lot to this, because you really, it just seems like 15 minutes, but like really paying attention to, like, this is original music, this is actual lighting, and there's like real like transition thing happening, and this is a lot of it is very long takes. It's not a one take, but it looks try to be like more of an unbroken cut, very seamless in that way. And that takes a lot out of the actors, and having actors doing that, since something's written and it's verbose, they're sitting in kind of a similar intimate place, and that can be really hard to make it seem visually engaging all the way through. And yeah, I can see where the places where it's like, oh, it's not perfect in here and there. So I'm not really here to critique it in some way. I get it. This is a years old project for you and everything. You probably see all those things and everything. One thing I will say, I like that this thing I know about you stylistically that you have this thing for is the really deep colors and lighting and everything that's like on your channel icon. And even somehow, even though you like use anime footage for most of your videos, you somehow are able to incorporate that quality into your thumbnails and into your video itself, the light flares and everything. And there's something very futuristic and striking about it. The fact that it's even in this movie too is really interesting, and I like it a lot. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to belabor it, because I can, at least from reading your friend and everything, that like there's a specific, very kind of special type of thing in a way that like is anyone bringing it up. I like literally my project got brought up by someone, and they probably know who they are, and they may have connected it now. But I don't want to don't want to belabor it, but like when someone brings it up, right, it's sort of like, oh yeah, thank you. It's sort of like, yeah, thanks. It's really hard. And that was like my Lupin video for a while as well, because that took so much out of me. And I think thankfully I was able to come around in a different way on that one. But yeah, I know how this feels. I can tell, I can visibly relate to it. I think not obviously what's in the video too. I really like, not the movie. I like the message in the movie as well, and I think I didn't see where it was coming, and I don't want to praise it much further, and I get it's I don't know, but yeah, I just really wanted to talk about it, because I thought it was really specific and interesting, and it's on a different channel, and even your thread, it didn't seem like a ton of people had noticed it that much, but I noticed it. I really wanted to show you that I noticed it and cared and was interested in it. Best of luck on your stuff in 2023. I'm looking for whatever you got. Not pressure for videos and stuff, but and congrats on the 100K on the Ava vid. That's really great. But yeah, just want to touch base and say that I saw this and I relate to it a lot. Yes, this is the Canipa Effect I was mentioning. Is Chainsaw Man a good adaptation? Yes. Animation Spotlight. Again, I say with every Canipa Effect video, I think he just makes rock solid, consistent content. I'm beginning to get more and more jealous of it, because it's just rock solid. It's good every time. I don't know what to tell you. And that's fair. But like one thing I did really appreciate was that it's again really focusing on the names and the people behind this production and their backs, their history with this stuff. But I like that you kind of inserted yourself a little bit more of like, what I couldn't get into what first took me to Chainsaw Man anime was this scene in episode 4 when this happened, and he shows kind of why that's the case and the background behind it. And the same thing with the anime as well, and then contrasting it with how the anime with the manga, with him reading the manga. It didn't hook me until this chapter when this moment happened, and then how the anime handles that in a different way. And yeah, it was a good companion piece, I think, to TheCynicClinic's video, who makes really good points about how there are more gripes with Chainsaw Man's adaptation. This is what I should have mentioned in Cynic. Jaden, please, I hope you're listening to this. I have more to say about your video, I swear. Oh, fuck. No, the point he was making about people are going to complain more about Chainsaw Man's anime because they are used to the source material and are attached to it and have loved these particular images for years already. And so seeing someone else adapt it, they're like, no, you missed this one little thing, or, even though it's practically the same shot, right? But you contrast that with Bocchi that didn't have nobody complained. If anything, people were happy that they added this sort of stuff and were more visually inventive. And that's probably because they didn't know it was a mod. They didn't know it was a thing. It's really funny. And I like that Canipa actually happened to mention Bocchi as well as a point of contrast with Chainsaw Man 2. It's just a weirdly, really interesting companion piece. I don't know, it just worked out really well. But again, I think the points he was making about how like the timing, the comedic timing as well as the horror timing, that they're very similar, and this is how that the anime was able to make it kind of different and not just like a panel for panel type of thing. I really like the comedic, because both the horror and the comedic timing happens on the page flip for Fujimoto, where you turn the page and the next moment happens. It's like a cause effect type of thing, and that whiplash. And so it's like, how do you replicate that in an anime? And he was able to show that in 2 different tones and 2 different styles, and yeah, they both managed to do a pretty good job with that in their own way. I think it's kind of an adaptation that you would want, is something that you might get out of with Ashita no Joe in the 70s and stuff, where it's not just panel for panel. The same events happen and it's this kind of story you love, but there's so much more to it. And I think that the quote that Caleb has at the end, where it's like getting your dessert, it's like getting a really good meal and then the dessert on top or something else. It was just like added. It's just more. You just get more. It's just more. It's like, what more could you want for? Ask. It's great. Yeah. I think it was a really good point. Again, I really like the animation specific, like really crediting particular animators for this sort of thing. Being more clarity of like, oh, it's more of a web generations instead of one web generator or one web gen type of thing. It's more of a accumulation of talent that came together for this one. Yeah, I think it's fantastic. Of course, yeah. It wouldn't be a digest without a BobSamurai video. I feel like I'm gonna have to talk about it every month. What can I say? He's one of the goats, and I have to thank for the other thing. And I'm not bought at all. No. No, it's been great. And watching his stuff and everything. But he put out a beginner's guide to early anime. He's exploring the stuff from before the 60s, where it feels like that's that real turning point in the anime becomes anime type of thing. But there's a lot of really fundamental, important stuff that happens before that point with Yasuji Mori and everything. And I like that he just takes that approach not through academia. He doesn't read any John Clement's book, or not to belittle Clements or any of the people that do that work. But I like that Bob really just kind of takes it for what the actual anime is. But I like that he actually credits the individuals behind it. And it's like, oh, this is the same guy that would go on to make this thing sort of thing. But showing the stuff, you're not just learning it in a textbook or on a blog. As much as I love those modes of learning about these sorts of things. I think it's good, especially for production history, where there is no visual besides the end result, and so you just you don't have what the studio is like. So when you read it, you can picture the studio and these characters, and they're not characters, they're real people, but like a real, you can visualize it. I think it's easier to do that in a blog, that sort of story. But to really describe the work, it's a visual medium. So you show the work, you show the visuals, right? And again, that's one of the things that's so valuable about Bob's stuff, is that he really chooses specific stuff. The way he told me about how he edits his videos, where choosing very specific clips, and he's like, I'm going to use that in a video, and actually kind of takes that in advance. I don't know if as he's watching it or something, but like, you know, doesn't have to go back and look for it, more or less. I think that's just really smart. It just feels a lot more calculated, and yeah, I just think his clip selection is just wonderful in this. Really choosing specific stuff that makes you fascinated and interested in it, as well as his actual descriptions, you know, and really giving good reasons for them, and then not being too overtly negative or too overglowingly positive or whatever. I think he's just in a neutral spot that's just like, just right. I got of course. Yeah, and some of the stuff's really cool. Really, again, it's the function and value of some of these videos can have, despite maybe it not being the most popular thing, is that like you get to see this stuff you never would have gone out of your way to check out otherwise, because all we see, we talk about how incredibly accessible anime is now, especially legally, you know, never mind how if you torrent or legal websites, whatever, you can virtually watch anything, even stuff that isn't subtitled. You know, if it ever got a physical release, it's probably out there. And the fact that people have curated that and have really made that accessible is miraculous. A lot of other like world animation doesn't really have that. Not to the nearly to the volumetric extent that anime has. It's insane. But we only want to watch so much. There's a difference between being able to watch something and then actually watching it, right? Because it's easy to just look at the title, the card, the cover art on Mal. That's the show. That's the entire thing. That is the encapsulation of all of it. It's so easy to do that, especially if the cover is shit. And then you just completely write it off. But then you have no idea what kind of impact and visuals these things have unless it's shown to you in a video, right? Unless you actually see it for yourself. Not even to have to show you the whole thing. Even just the fair use, like clip, like 5 seconds a piece, like scrambled in a way, it just gets you exposed to this stuff. And that's what's so valuable. And that's what I really like that Bob did here. Yeah, I'm looking forward to more stuff. This is wonderful. I did want to talk about Beyond Ghibli's Josie, Tiger, and the Fish video, mainly because I mean, I couldn't tell you if this was just emblematic of the rest of his videos, or it's just, there's something about this one that I think he did a really smart, commendable job. First of all, one thing I noticed was that, I mean, the intro is interesting because it's making this observation that there's a lot of anime films lately about the ocean, just so happen to be, but none of them caught him in the same way that this particular movie did. Even though, and then when he goes on to describe it, it's like, it's not really about the ocean so much, but it has the ocean in it. I don't know. It was, I guess that's a criticism, but no, it was a good hook though. It was a very good hook because I didn't even realize that it's like, yeah, that is a weird, and I don't even think that was all of them that you mentioned. I think there was one more that like is like Seaside or something. I don't remember the name of it. It's not Seaside, but I can remember that it takes place on the coast. That like it's like right there. It's very similar. I'm like, yeah, that is weird. There's just so many of them have that. Yeah, but like, but it was a pretty good segue into that. It'll be a little forced, but I liked it. No, don't worry. Backhanded compliment much? No. But then I think what the two things that stood out to me with this was, again, I think I love the overall awareness of this property. It's not just some movie you found. It's not just like, oh, this movie. You know, you really get, like, where is this from? It's based on this novel from '84, and it's had multiple adaptations. I don't like but like, it was such a deft touch of acknowledging that source material and acknowledging that like multiple adaptation sort of thing, but it was just enough where you really want to focus on the anime, this particular anime movie that I was familiar with. I haven't seen, but like I had seen it around, of course, one of those things. But like I had no idea that it was based on a book and had multiple live action adaptations before it. But then the other thing that stood out for me, I guess, was just like, I don't know if this was the case in other ones. It probably was with your climber video, and it just didn't have as much an affect on me because it's not as much of a distinctive character. But like, you know, the fact that the cover here is Josie and the girl in on the front is really specific because you really take a hard look and focus on that character and how it's not what people expect when they see that this anime is about a girl in a wheelchair. You don't anticipate that the girl is kind of a witch, you know, kind of angsty and like not entirely sympathetic. Not entirely. That seems fair to say, I guess. Especially in the clips you were showing from the live action version, where she's actually a lot more combative and everything. It's just really interesting, and it really paints a picture that like the people are still human. You know, it's not just like all wheelchair people are the most like benevolent. I'm at peace with my situation or whatever. It's, you know, they're humans like every, you know, obviously, but and that's that ableist like as a disability type of thing that I think humanity has that still reconciles with and still kind of struggles to talk about. Even I was just kind of struggling just now trying to talk about. It's like, how do I word that? And it's like, that sounds insensitive and everything. You know, it's just trying to come out in a way that's like just trying to communicate my point, I guess. I don't know. But I think you just had a really specific good touch with this that like made sense, that like it was really compelling all the way through. The thing is with like, you know, I've been nice with a lot of your videos, of course. I got a backhand account. I don't know what it is today, Joe. I couldn't tell you. But also, before I forget this, a stray thought. I liked that you kind of inserted yourself, and it was like I've gone diving, and this is my experience with that as like someone who loves this sort of thing. This is really up my alley, and that sort of thing. I liked that. That was good. The other thing the thing is, right, I think your style and your performance in these videos are so often very flat. They're very the same consistency all the way through. Beginning to end, it's like a very packaged thing. And it doesn't, the ups and downs and the journey ends up being more in the substance and not in the style, if that makes sense. And that's okay. Like, I've enjoyed the videos in the same way. But I think this one, it's not that this one had this similar affect. I think as a result, when it has this flatter emotional curve stylistically, it ends up being that like you're saying a lot of cool, interesting stuff, and I'm paying attention, I'm engaged, but I feel like I don't often feel like I'm hanging on your every word the same way with other videos as I was with this one. And I think it was, again, because of that. Again, it's not out of a stylistic choice, but in this case, the narrative focus, the substance was that strong and has that arc of really going through it. And you didn't spoil the whole movie or anything, but I think just like the progression and the thrust, I guess, of this video ended up being really captivating in a way that I just want to know more about this girl and what she goes through, and getting me convinced to watch this movie in a way, which is, you know, the idea. It's the whole idea. That's kind of what I'm going for. Yeah, you know, yeah, just I think that one that stood out to me was this, especially like I was a lot more arrested and captivated in this one, I guess. Not that the other ones, not that I was lying in the case of the other ones. I think I find different stuff in each of your videos that I find interesting. That's like, and it's also just like, I have no clue of what you're going to talk about ever, anytime. It's so out of the blue and exciting in that way. But like, you know, that's what the best YouTubers, I guess, where you don't expect it, I guess. I like the Isla cameos and everything. And of course, the choices and everything with the visuals is all good. Again, it was something I'm noticing now, where it's just that there's like, it's a lot of the delivery, it's a lot of the voice performance, and I don't say if there's anything that would like change it up or inflections or something. That's kind of just your performance. That's just kind of how it is, and that's great, and it's worked. It's worked. I just realized you're at 177K. That's awesome. I think you're doing really well. But yeah, like I don't know, it's just really interesting. But yeah, it's something to think about. I don't know. I always feel like, again, I think it's the YouTubers I admire the most. I end up having it's harder for me to say things. It's harder for me to like figure when I have to talk about something else or whatever. But yeah, I enjoyed this. I have no idea how to end these things. Oh, I'm so bad at it. And I leave these things in because it's like, oh, it's candid. I don't know. It's more of a voice message to you, Joe, and to these other creators in a way. I hope you enjoy. Yeah, I really liked the video, man. That was really cool. I don't believe I've talked about the anime tea before, and she does let's spill some tea, and she is like, this video is brought to you by this is the tea that I'm drinking. I'm like, all right, yeah, good, devoted to it, cool. And I like the setup. It's very it's easy. It's something I can watch. It's so bad. It's such a bad. What are you talking about, Shaves? No. Look, the thing is the visual component with this one is she's sitting in the little set and everything, and it's the same thing with Digest almost, and it not so much where she's showing visuals like still images for other stuff, so it's very minimalist editing, very minimalist visual aesthetic going on, right? So that's what I'm trying to say. So it's just a very easy, very followable. Oh, but you know what? The fact that it was so simple, I forgot that I had this thought, and now I just had it, and I was like, oh, that kind of contrasts, but also compliment. I don't know. It's an additive point. I'd say it's very simplistic, and I think what could have helped with this video, there's a lot of negative space on the right side of the screen. So she's like sitting right here, and there's a lot of stuff here. There's a little display and everything, and that's good. But I felt like what the bulk of this video ended up being kind of going through these 4 different categories, and she's like kind of relating them to condiments, which is interesting. That was really unique. But she kind of just rattles off a lot of different characters from various anime, and kind of goes on a tangent with some series where it's like multiple characters of the same show, and kind of just lists a lot of different characters. And I don't know, it just kind of felt and then for that chunk of the video. As much as I like that she was kind of bringing more nuance to this character, to like really figuring out, defining the Ikemen as a dynamic and as a character. I like that there's subcategories almost. But then it was harder for me to follow those subcategories because you show the character once when you say what their name, say who they are, and then just kind of move on to a different character. So it didn't have a visual through line. I thought if you had something like a tier list, not like a tier list of like ranking them, although you mentioned you want to do that, and I think that's fun. I think that'll be to develop flesh this idea out more, and maybe even have a little audience participation of like, give them some other anime characters. Who would you put in this category and this category to better define this idea? I like that. Trixie did a lot of that. That period when she had the personality test, but for anime characters or something. It was something like that. It was really well thought out and a lot of examples and fleshed out. It was really cool. But I feel like if you had something like a tier list, not to rank them, but to at least keep their visual on screen. Because if you group these characters that are in the same category together, it's like, oh, I can start to kind of picture what I can start to see what you mean a little better. I can get crumbs and pieces when you do one character at a time, but I might latch on to something that doesn't fully encapsulate what you're really trying to say, I guess. I think maybe the collage of all these, here's like a 3x3, or yeah, like I think that could have worked actually. Maybe not like tier list or anything, but it's like here's my assortment of characters that I would give in this category of the subcategory of ikemen. And then we have guts, and we have, you go through each of them of like how they define that particular thing. And that's a visual that the audience can listen to what you're saying, but also kind of have their eyes wander on screen. And they can kind of, he's like, I wonder what she's going to say about this character. And it gives a little something to look forward to almost, right? Something like that. I would say the video makes it seem like they're being pitted against each other, the ikemen versus Bishonen, and why they're better than Bishonen. I think it's just I think she pretty much phrases it as a personal preference, which is really the right play. I think that's fair. I'm a little conflict averse, if you don't know me. But I get it with clickbait. I get that's how you have to do it. But I think the bulk of the video was really constructive and interesting. Yeah, I enjoyed it. My boy waited a whole month for this. So I hope I do it justice. I really hope I do. GilLiesHere, finally with this blockage. And I hate to describe it as that right off the bat, but I wanted to mention that reading the description was really interesting of just how it's like, yeah, I was writing this in 2021 and procrastination, burnout, a lot of stuff getting in the way, and it's supposed to be 5 minutes and became this long, and yep, and he's like, he's already kind of like venting some frustrations with it, which I didn't read the description until towards the end of the video. Really, I really was just excited to watch it, but then reflecting on it, I'm like, I can see where you feel like there's some shortcomings or some whatever about it. Everyone was wrong about this isekai, and it's focusing mainly on Death March to the Parallel World Rhapsody, which has had quite the beating. I distinctly remember Scamboli using it multiple times, like more than once, to be kind of the beating, the kind of the scapegoat, or just a thing that like I think anime these days, and just like this sucks or whatever. Without giving a vibe of why and what is it about this show, right? And I really think that Gil really puts those feet to those claims of generic and up to task. They just put him to task, being like, well, what are you talking about? No, right, specifically, and if anything, explaining why it might feel that way. Because Death March is really trying to strip it to its bare essentials. And I really like the analogy of a clock, of grandfather clock, that you can see all the mechanizations inside, and they're kind of all the core ideas of isekai, the karoshi, the slavery aspect, all these different things, really boil down to their simplest components, and so it makes it seem like, oh, it's kind of no wonder it's generic, right? But I like that he didn't necessarily dwell too much on those complaints as much, even though it's like, I feel like you definitely could have found I like that you cited the ANN review about it, but like it was definitely out there when it aired, and it's like, why Death March specifically, right? Yeah, I think it was really, but I can understand why it would balloon out to kind of a longer video, because there's kind of more to it, and it's a little each one deserves to really be talked through in a very bare bones kind of way. Because like I as a viewer who has seen a lot of these kinds of videos and is a little more I don't want to say educated, I just knows a little, I see where when you're describing the Naro site, Naro-K, and describing the site, and it's like, yep, again, you're not really building, you're not making this video building off so much of other people, even though you do use Joe from Pause and Select's one of his unlisted videos, and you're clearly influenced by his style a good deal. Although I do like that there's places that you do deviate from him in a way that like they're clear influence of like using clips in a very careful manner, very few lip flaps, but also a lot of the After Effects animation type of thing, and the kind of the more stripped down but clean aesthetic, which is reflective in your other videos anyway, so it's not like a surprise or anything. I feel like this one more so than others, I think, definitely felt more pause and select-esque, right? But at the same, but I like that you're not just kind of assuming that the viewer already knows all this stuff. You really take it pace by pace, beat by beat. And it ends up being a lot more accessible, I think, than one of Joe's videos. No offense to Joe. Like I've mentioned on Digest that Joe has they're not the most accessible videos sometimes, right? It's just the way he's presenting the information, how dense it is, and the rate at which, I don't know. But like, I get the frustration of having it have to be 20 minutes, like having to be longer because you're explaining it a lot more granularly and carefully. But I think that was really important and valuable to really guide the viewer through and to really gain a more sympathetic perspective on the whole genre, not simply on Death March, but really going in with real empathy, with not just because it's like when you see this sort of video of Everzaraba Isekai, and what I know from your previous videos, it's like, yep, here we go defending another Isekai, you know. I'm a little used to it. I kind of get it. I kind of figure where this is going. But I was surprised that it really was more of a simplistic, this is why, like a very simple, this is why they have a lot of slavery in it. It's just because, not just, I shouldn't say just, don't want to generalize. But like, it really is because they take off of JRPGs and this idea of party members. They're not slaves in that sense of the word, but then if you want to put them in a narrative, like a story, like a light novel, like an anime, it's how do you reconcile that? For a lot of these amateur writers who have done a lot of these JRPGs, their solution is slavery. And it's not really a political conversation. It's not about the morality. Obviously there's more to be talked about, and I like that you address that, but like it's kind of coming from their perspective, like it's not this whole trying to make a judgment call on slavery. It just kind of is a thing that exists, you know, and the people in particular, you know, it's just kind of on its face. And I guess there's just something more sensitive about that topic in our country, at least. You know, just for us, I guess. Couldn't imagine why. No, but yeah, just really stripping and really spelling it out with the karoshi aspect and the fact that it's Japanese and they're taking from a Japanese perspective. You know, it's not just and I think that's a point of contrast with older isekai, actually. To be fair, I haven't seen too many. With Digimon Adventure, Escaflowne, I haven't seen Rayearth, I haven't seen Dunbine, but what I can assume from those two, as well as these two, I can probably make this argument for Digimon and Escaflowne. They aren't real, like the characters aren't coming from a Japanese mentality, right? They're coming from a more universal, I was teleported here kind of mentality. And a lot of it's not just some guy getting isekai, getting killed and then reincarnated. It's not just some dude. It's a Japanese business person who is specifically, this is their life, and this is an escape from their life. And it's not just escapism in like this bland, overused word that's just like, oh, it's just escapism. It's like the escapism of a Japanese businessman is different from escapism of a teenager, of a US born, like someone like me, or the people who are making this criticism that it's just escapism, whatever, like the majority of anime fans in the West, right? Even just adults who have jobs now that are like more older but are still anime fans, like they probably, I don't know how much they can relate to the Japanese business person and this issue of karoshi and the oppressive like demands and cultural acceptance of this pipeline that they have. And the need to escape to is a literal, like a real thing of like wanting to go to the countryside. It doesn't matter if it's fantasy or not. They just want to go to the countryside. And that's an actually big deal. That's an actual, you know, thing, right? And I really like that your video is methodical and really points that out. Really gives that that it's just right there. It's that easy. It's that in your face. And I think to your point, I think Death March is the perfect example for this, because it's so obvious and so in your face that it can come off as generic for someone who, look, the majority of people who are making these comments, think of the context that they're in. They're watching everything. They're watching all the seasonals that season, right? You think of a lot of those people who have just gotten that deep into it and would have a platform enough to say this show is generic, that they fucking saw it at all. There's one of two reasons they probably saw it. Either they are already a fan and they probably wouldn't have said it was generic, or they're coming out with a more specific, right? They're approaching at it from that angle of just like, yeah, I know what I'm getting into. Or they're watching everything and they're just going to make a blanket assumption on that. Like, of course, you can't spend this amount of thought that Gil does in this video, which, look, it took him a year. It took him this long. Granted, procrastination. I am right there with you. The fact that I called this video a blockage is the term that I'm using for my videos. For my Naruto video. 3 hours that I still have to edit. Not quite 3 hours. It's more like 2 hours, 20 minutes right now. Something like that. Something like that. I get it. It sucks. It sucks. But that's what I mean. Where was I going with that? These reviewers who are in this context, they're going to call it generic. They don't have the damn time to do the meticulous, granular observation, not even analysis. It's just really looking at it and giving it the time of day and like give it the context it deserves, right? It's that thing. It's this bell curve that for me with anime fans, right? Where a lot of us, when we're beginners, we're just like, wow, this is all really cool. Wow. And they're surprised by everything. And then when they get to the middle here, the bulk of anime fans, I'm sorry if I've echoed this point a bunch of times on Digest. It's cringe. It's boring. The bulk of anime fans, they're going to be like, oh, generic. I know what this show is going to be. And, they're above it. They're a little above. They're trying to they're trying to be a little clever. And then I know the tropes. Ooh. And most people are in that. And they never get out. And then you get to the other side where you're like, this is good. Not that you're blanket, but see, the fact that it's the difference between the person on this side is the extreme is that you really have put so much passion and thought and love and admiration for this medium, but then you've seen how the cynicism and pessimism, I don't know if it's really the same thing, kind of, they sound similar. The negative thoughts and those feelings towards certain anime, you see how fruitless it is. What substance do you get from saying this show is generic? What? Really? Nothing. You get nothing. It's useless to say that. I didn't know what this fucking show was, besides it was an isekai. And all I heard about it was that it was generic. It's a harem baba. Because I make that, the synapses and the people saying this take advantage of it for the viewer. They can make this assumption because you just see guy, bunch of girls. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, I know what this is going to go. Even though, I don't fully know where this is going, right? I like that you didn't belabor what the show is really about, but I like the point you made that what makes Death March kind of particular, because every single isekai is different and they have to stand up somehow, because it wouldn't have been successful otherwise. As you say in the you don't put it in the video, but you put it in the description that like Death March is actually successful for a period of time, like a fairly successful series. It's because what's the approach? This main character, he just wants to travel. He wants to see the world. He just wants to explore and appreciate nature. Like, that's so wholesome. Like, that's so nice. For me, right? I guess my concern with getting into these sorts of isekai, it's just that I don't know where they're going. I would want an ending, and I feel like that's one thing that I haven't fully seen, really articulated. To be fair, like you said, I like that the point that Gil makes, that a lot of these critics, they're just looking at the anime and they're not looking at all the backstory behind it, not just the origin point, but the fact that it went from that to light novel to manga to anime. Like, there's refinements in that. It's not just a carbon copy. When you make those sorts of adaptations, there's refinement from the web novel to the light novel. There's refinement from the light novel to the manga, or even differences. And then there's differences from the manga, like anything. And so it's like, what is the anime basing it off of? Is it more like this thing or like this thing? You know, that requires time and nuance. And, you know, you just want to cover other stuff. I get it. Especially with how fast moving things are nowadays. It's hard for me too. It's frustrating and tempting to be like, I could spend a long time on this series or this movie or this scene, just one thing, you know. But it's hard. Great power. Hard to do. But you know, I like that thought. I don't really know where I was going. I'm sorry, I'm so ranting all over the place. Needless to say, I enjoyed the video, Gil, and I hope that was substantive and worth the wait. It was released at December 31st, and he's like, please. I was like, yeah, dude. Like, it's because I was early. It's because I released Digest on the 30th, and usually I would have waited later or whatever. But I also wanted to just wanted to get it, you know, at the time. Anyway, yes, great video. Enjoyed it a lot. Saberspark put out What Ruined 4Kids: The Fall of an Anime Empire. And I was so looking forward to this because his videos that are informative, that's what really got his start. And that's what really going into the history and the corporations and the people behind it. Fascinating. I love his VeggieTales video, his other various studios and everything. I think they're so insightful. And this 4Kids video is no different for the most part, because they really do go for what's the origins, here's from 1970, and then they did this, and it feels a little more like a clip. Like, I feel like he, in previous, those are very early videos for his channel, and he has since morphed into doing more. He clearly has a team now. He's a little more quippy, and I think he caters more to like that audience, and he's made a lot of other videos, and those experiences kind of rub off in this sort of thing. Not for the best, in my opinion. So did not start on a good foot. I was on my back foot from this, which was really unfortunate because I really like his vids. And then when he actually gets into the substantive part that I knew he was good at, I'm like, okay, there it is. Fucking thank God. And he does make really good points. Specifically, the main point of how, like, you know, everyone really clowns on them for 4Kids for censorship when everybody did it. Everybody. Toonami. Everybody. Before 4Kids. Fucking Astro Boy, blah, 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 blah. Like, it happened all the time. And 4Kids is the only one that gets shit for it. And, you know, he didn't make this particular point. But he did make this point, and he made a point in that kind of leans into my greater point about censorship. This fucking hand-wringing over censorship. Oh my God, I'm sick of it now. Because you look at, he's talking about how, he gives this clip of the Eric Stewart, of the guy who voices Kaiba and Brock, or I think something like that. And he was talking about how the reason they did the Jelly Donut thing is because the networks, and it turns out the international companies like TV Tokyo, like not TV Tokyo, but like the people behind the Pokemon anime, they want it to be global. When you make a rice ball in the Pokemon world, it immediately targets it as a Japanese thing, because that's really a Japanese cuisine, and fans like that because they want it to be, oh, we want to know about that, when it's clearly not a jelly donut, duh. But like, not everyone will know what that is. It's just, think of where Pokemon is airing all over the country in the 90s and 2000s. Like, I understand their choice, but he was saying this, like, even they were cool with it, like, wanted it to be the rice ball and everything. And they even showed at some point in this video, Saberspark shows the clip of Advanced Generation, a different thing, and you can find this video on YouTube of like Pokemon, or I think it's 4Kids Hates Rice Balls or something, and it's a bunch of clips from Advanced Generation where they changed a rice ball into a sandwich or a cracker or whatever. But you see, everyone's gonna miss the point. This is the point I'm making so much, that like the scene is not any fucking different. It is not. Whether it's a cracker or a sandwich or a rice ball, yeah, it's funny that they literally they literally added new animation, like covered the rice ball with a long sandwich, and Ash is holding it like a Subway sandwich. Like, yeah, that's funny when you know that it's a rice ball. It's supposed to be like when the YouTube video shows you the rice ball clip first and then shows you the censorship one. Like, obviously that's gonna stand out to you. But you know what they don't do, which is a little insidious in my opinion? They don't sub the Japanese scenes. They don't tell you what they're saying. And I am not fluent, but I've listened to enough raw Japanese audio without subs to know what they're saying in a general sense. And then you listen to the dub, it's the same scene. It's pretty much the same dialogue. It's the same context. There's no reason for that. Yes, it's silly. It's stupid. There's no reason for them to have changed the food. But it doesn't matter if they change the food or not. The scene is the fucking same. They're not censoring. They're not technically hiding anything. There's nothing to hide. It's the same scene. It doesn't matter in this particular instance. Obviously, there's censorship everywhere, and there's within reason and stuff. But like, and the other thing I was thinking that this made me think of, this fucking rice ball shit. Have we seen rice balls in the Pokemon anime recently? Have we seen them since Advanced Gen? Isn't it a little weird just kind of having a rice ball in the Pokemon world that's not necessarily supposed to be like Johto? You could make an argument it's kind of more of a Japanese, based on a Japanese region. But like Sinnoh, right? How like these areas, Kalos is based on France. Will they have a rice ball in it? You know? It's a global. Pokemon is intentionally supposed to be a generalized global, not based on anyone, you know, or based on different. It's a global thing, is what I'm trying to say, and that's part of the reason it's the highest grossing media franchise of all time. That's just it. I think that's one of the many reasons why it's so successful. That's a huge point. And people always don't, they never fucking think of it. It's so annoying. Oh my God. Anyway, but it was just, it belabors the point a little bit because Saberspark, I don't know if it was this, if he has a writer or his editors or something, but just, it was so obnoxious how many times they brought that up in this fucking video. You can't think of anything else. Anything else. You couldn't bring up Ultimate Muscle. You couldn't bring up Magical Doremi, which also had a lot of censorship with like completely removing an episode of the cultural festival. They go to like one of those evening, like they're wearing yukatas and everything. Completely cut the episode because how do you censor that? You don't. And they don't want it to know people it's Japanese, so they fuck it, right? Of course. And look, you make the point, whatever, of like whether they should do that or not. Like, whatever. I don't know. It's also in the past. We don't have to deal with this shit anymore. Why complain about it? Honestly, if it was the only version available or something, that'd be one thing. I don't know. It's just, I'm sick of the fucking conversation. But the way this video starts with like a Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged clip, and I paused it like 3 seconds in. I'm like, that's Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged. Are you seriously trying to masquerade 4Kids, like the genuine 4Kids thing, into a Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged? Turns out no, it's a joke. They're just making a little opening funny skit using the Metal Gear Revengeance politician senator buff guy. He's like, I made it. For sources, I made it the fuck up, and he's the network executive who wants them to censor everything. And they're like, oh, that circle of friendship. We don't want kids drawing on their hands, so censor that. And so it's just regular hands. And I'm like, okay, was that a real thing? Did they really do that I don't know. I have to look at. I don't know. I don't know. But then after that, you can tell it's satire because they're like, oh, those cards, kids could get paper cuts. You don't need to get cards, and like it's a card game, and that's at the end of it. It's not a very good skit, to be honest with you, and it just put me on my guard. I thought it was awful. And but then yeah, fucking Saber just like, I don't know if this is true, but like you see that, and then Saber like talks about, it's like, yeah, I was one of those kids who grew up with 4 kids. I was rushing home to get home, and he's like, look, I did run into an awkward situation where my dad took me to this restaurant, to a sushi restaurant, and I asked them for a jelly donut. No, you didn't. That my first thought was like, you literally made that up just to bring up the fucking jelly donut point. The most obvious, done to death. The horse it's a pile of dust. It's not a horse anymore. It's not a horse anymore. It's so, and I'm just, that's the only, is that the only fucking thing you can think of, guys? The censorship thing? If anything, I liked that they showed the other rice ball thing that he turns it into a sandwich, because apparently that's real. And they did it more than once. You know, but honestly, you call me fucking insane or black-pilled or something. If anything, it might have been a good thing, because it just seems weird that they just have rice balls in the Pokemon world. It just didn't seem weird. It just seemed weird to me. It's like, I don't know. I don't know why that seems weird, but like, it just doesn't fit. It just doesn't seem right in the same way. So it's like, I get that they do something a little more general, like a sandwich or a cracker or something. But then again, it doesn't matter because the scene doesn't change. The context doesn't change. Because that puts me on my guard. Everything he says, I have to be like, what? You know, it just, again, everything is put on with scrutiny. I had to look up the thing just to see if the sandwich edit was real. I didn't know if it was real or not, and then found it, and then there's more examples, and okay, it's real. But it puts me on my guard where they're like, is that real? Like, I don't know. It was not a good choice. The substance, good. I like that he brings up that, you know, censorship was not really related to their downfall, and they shouldn't be the only ones who get scrutinized. It's just like, you know, everyone else did this, right? And just kind of cooling it down. It just seemed weird to make that point when that felt like the only thing that people complain about. That people complain about with 4Kids is the censorship. And maybe it is just because that's how long it is. Also, this other thing of like, you know, the fans realize that the anime actually has some bite to it. And they cut to a clip from Pokemon Generations of like, you know, Squirtle biting the Charmander, or Charmander biting the Squirtle or something. And I think it's Squirtle biting Charmander. And it's like, obviously I know what you're talking about. Haha, bite out of it. It's Pokemon. I get it. It fits. But it came out after 4Kids was the whole thing. It's not like they censored that. Would that have actually, we don't know. They weren't that, I don't know how Puritarian they actually were. But also, you don't realize how mundane a lot of the edits may have been. It wasn't like just, they cut everything bad out. No, sometimes they cut things that you wouldn't have expected. Like, wait, why did they cut that? And they cut it for whatever, you know, for brevity. Because they have to have another, they don't just have one commercial break, they have 3 commercial breaks in American TV licensing, in TV broadcasting. They have more breaks than us, so they literally have to cut it around different to like have a fade to black in places when there wasn't supposed to be a fade to black. Like, there's a lot more in structuring and everything that's going on. And yeah, I do want to make a 4Kids video. I just have this idea about it. That's not unrelated to the censorship, but it might tie into it a little bit. But God, I'm just sick of it. The fact that also this isn't the most original video either. Just like, everyone's fucking talking about 4Kids, and it can do really well apparently. I don't know. And last, my phone's probably running out of battery soon, and it's been so long, and I'm tired. This video, Cinema Therapy, I'm happy I'm ending on a good video. I'm ending this recording on a really good video from Cinema Therapy. Therapist reacts to Grave of the Fireflies. Look, I didn't know these guys. And I'm like, okay, let me try it. And it's becoming a rote formula on YouTube of expert reacting to media, right? And I've talked about the things that I enjoy this format for the most part, because they're often providing very good insight. I think they're actually giving value to it. But this was value that I did not expect, because it's not a therapist in a sense of like he's introducing concepts. It's two people. It's a filmmaker and a therapist. I think both of them one of them has kids, but they're both old enough to have kids, right? And one of them did have kids and everything, so they're much older. They said they were in their 40s, I think, one of them at one point. But it was just a very unexpectedly human, empathetic, crying kind of reaction to it. And it wasn't like a sobby mess or anything, although they did cry to it. It was more like really thoughtful words. It opens really well because it kind of gives snippets of the things they say throughout the video in a sort of AMV type format. I love that. I actually thought it was really clever and really, it showed me, it was like, oh, is this going to be like different? Is this not in the same format as what I was expecting? And it still is, but I like their editing style here actually, because it's not the same boxes in the same corner every time. They're changing it up a lot because they have 3 camera angles, one with the 2 of them and one for each of them. They kind of mix that up and they put them on different sides of the screen depending on what's compositionally makes sense or is appealing to look at. It's not the same kind of rote. And I also like that it's risky. I don't know how I hope these videos are okay, that they don't get taken down. But the fact they have the most of the movie on the screen and they're in different places and everything, I don't know. It was just wonderful. It was really well edited, really thoughtful, emotional, empathetic. Really, I like the commentary. I just really like because they give a scene, they're showing a scene that's very unbroken and just like, oh yeah, and she walks like that, and yeah, oh that's so cute, and like commentary like that is like, I don't know, it seems rote. It seems just like, I don't know if I'd be into that, but like, I think these guys were really good at it. I just really enjoyed it. And it also just feels like the most like present, humane, like natural reaction to this movie, you know, and it doesn't feel like your armchair psychology, like it said, like it looks in the thumbnail, it looks like it's going to be that. It's not that at all. I don't think he brings up a single concept of therapy or, you know, psychology or anything. It's just really humane and thoughtful and emotional and like really engrossing and impactful. I loved it. I really loved it. I was really surprised. I really want to watch. I kind of want to watch more, but I don't know how much more will be this thoughtful in the same way. Not that they won't be. I expect that they make good stuff. It's just like this sort of movie demands that. I feel like most people will either be on their guard, lock their emotions up and really talk seriously and kind of from a distance with it. But they really are up close with it and being vulnerable with this movie, which is really hard to do with this movie because Grave is, if you know Grave, whoo! Yeah, I don't know. It's just really wonderful. I really enjoyed it. Seriously. It's been a few days since I recorded that part. Let's continue on with Gigguk video, Best of Anime 2022. I feel like I might have covered every video of his of this series of sorts. This used to be such a big deal. Not used to, it still kind of is, I guess. I don't know. It's clearly a big labor of love on his part and his editor's part. You always hear them really, and you could feel it in this video too, the way he was talking about how it's like, I'd rather be careful. This because he apparently got like some content ID on where it's blocked in some countries with the read the manga video. Had some shonen studies. Like I'm avoiding that a little bit. And I'm like, oh yeah, fair. Although my Hinata video got blocked in Russia, but not for any Naruto content. It was for sort of Michael Jackson song that I used. So, but then that does suppress it. I've definitely noticed that. I think that's probably why Hinata didn't do so well. There's other reasons. And enough about me. and so he's done this for a few years now, where he's formatted this less about going season by season, and because there's more anime to talk about now, and he can't do it. And he has the seasonal videos anywhere, where he's doing the same kind of rattling off what a season is like this show's doing this over here, and this show's doing this over here. This one's become more of a list, and then he's like, I've had to like really narrow down, and I still made the longest list so far of 17 entries, and then some. I think number 6 takes like 2 spots actually. It's both Ao Ashi and Blue Lock. The thing with this video though, which was impressive, but I don't know, it's something, maybe I've said this in other parts, I've lost track of my street as years have gone by, but this was especially fast. This felt like a very fast video. And look, I'll be honest, I'll be upfront, I watch a lot of videos in 1.5 speed. I watch a lot in 1.5, and I don't normally notice. I almost don't notice ever, just because I'm used to that. And I am bad like that. I don't do that with anime, I swear to God. I swear on my life. But yeah, but then this one, I think it's just the edits. There's a lot of AMV type looking like cool edits and stuff, and I do sit to appreciate those, especially that opening AMV part, like impressive. But then just like, I think it's just very rapid fire, trying to be as tight as possible, because he doesn't really want to push quite over 30 minutes. Like, he doesn't want to make it a 40-minute video or something too super long. I imagine part maybe some algorithmic reason, but also for his editors for the sake of it, for all their sanity collectively. But like, it felt very Cliff Notesy with like he's just kind of boiling it down to each entry to their very barest components and something he liked about them. It obviously still felt from him, which is nice, considering now that I'm aware that he does use writers, and I'm not like knocking the practice entirely, but it's like, he takes the illusion out of it, with YouTube being kind of straight from the individual. But I get it. It's fine. But like, so it still felt like it was from him. But I guess the it's not really a qualm, it's just an observation that it just felt very truncated and just felt very blistering and kind of surface level. I think that then the elements that were really good was when he's giving a spot to an entry that very few people have talked about. Again, the Aoashi thing I was surprised about. I'm surprised with his number 1 spoilers being Made in Abyss. That was really exciting to see. Yeah. And certain little titles like that, I think, were interesting. Little titles, Made in Abyss. Comparatively, I mean, nobody talked about that show that season when it came out. I think everyone was very quietly suffering with that. I still haven't watched it. I really need to. Need to binge it. Hell yeah. But yeah, I don't know. There was the thing about that just felt very speed and fast. Which I get, I guess. It's like, I kind of would be interested in his experience with anime as a whole for 2022, and maybe not just like the year and trying to cover everything in a fair enough way. Because obviously there was titles that he did watch that he watched most of it from that year. And I don't know how much backlog stuff he watches. I would hope he watches some backlog things, but it would be interesting to get people's at this point is what I'm saying, because I feel like really early when he would do this in 2013 and everything, I thought that was a really good way to usher in this new era for anime fandom, with really keeping track of a seasonal rotation and how it's like, oh, this is everything that aired in the fall season and spring season and stuff like that. I felt like around 2011-12, that's like that's a fairly new concept, and 13 was really kind of that really first year of like, it's full blown every season where we notice it and we're keeping up on it really. So I think those videos really function well back then in that but now we're nearly 10 years in on that. We are 10 years in at this point actually, in this sort of video style. And to me, I guess, I'd be as interested, truthfully, I'd be as interested in the stuff that Gigguk has watched in general, anime wise, not simply the stuff that came out this year. He just suddenly wanted to rewatch something, and it just like, this was an experience. I really liked his Recreators video. I don't know if I talked about it. I'm not sure. But I really liked that but I did watch it, and I really liked that he gave that show another spotlight when, a lot of that's another, again, like a lot of these seasonals from the past 10 years, really, besides the kind of, decade defining ones that are like really massive hits, a lot of them get buried, a lot of them get forgotten. So it was just really nice to see that he went back and rewatched that show in particular. That was really interesting. And so certain reflections like that would be cool. I get that likely the bulk of his stuff that he mentioned here was because that's the stuff that he does watch, because it was just all from this year, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. There's some surprises. I thought I had seen somewhere, maybe I'm just misinterpreting it, of like his impression of Bocchi wasn't the most it wasn't the most like exciting, or just, I thought he said it was like decent or something. He wasn't as enthused about it, and I might just have seen like the thumbnail. I might be misinterpreting it, but then seeing it number 4 here was like shocking. Actually, I didn't expect it. And yeah, I don't know. But it was just kind of a lot of the similar hits, and it's like, yeah, we know about certain titles, which is like, yep, of course. So it felt a lot of it kind of glosses over, at least washes over, especially for how fast it is. Again, I think the real entertainment value was just the sheer amount of kind of creative output and energy in this, and these are a really big deal for him, and it takes like nearly a month after the year is over for them to compile it all together. So this is a very, a perennial yearly kind of big show-stopping thing for them. But again, I don't feel like it's the same climate anymore. It used to be a much bigger deal, and I think that was, and that's not on Gigguk's fault or anything like that. I think it really is merely that of the culture at the time, that sort of video was a big event and kind of warranted in that way. Nowadays, I'm not so sure. I'm not totally sure, but I do appreciate that, like, he was he's just more open about the things he's talking about, and it's just his personal list and that sort of thing. I do like that nowadays, I guess. And maybe that contradicts my previous coverage of this series in the past, maybe, but I think this is fair where it is right now, I guess. But yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on it. Get in the Mecha with a very good episode of Get in the Mecha. How is anime divided? This is really interesting, and I definitely put a much more thoughtful comment that he was very generous enough to pin and everything. It was really nice. And a good conversation we had. I am much more better at expressing my thoughts via text than I am on video sometimes. So I don't know how much better I'll do covering it here than I will over there. I do still have my notes, but I'll be honest, when I wrote that comment, it was a lot of it more this is like bullet points, so I had to like really express it in certain ways, and how it is. Maybe you don't, I don't know. But yeah, this is focusing on I don't know, subliminal is maybe the word for it, but basically kind of the in-between structuring, the proper tourniquet dividers is the thing he was saying. He was calling them, and I'm like, oh yeah, okay, that's fair. I think that's a good catch-all, really. There's a lot of different terms that he used that I was like, oh yeah, that is sort of different. Okay, yeah. I had never heard of the Avant. I had not heard that term. It's like, because that I know them as a cold open, and he does use cold opens, but like cold open is more like Avant is more like recap, or easing the story in a particular way. But then cold opens are like a joke in Kaguya-sama or Nichijou to kind of warm the audience up, sort of. And then Kimonozume is, I guess, also considered kind of a cold open, where it's a miniature story that doesn't have to do with the episode it's attached to, but it's sort of a way that fleshes out the monsters in the story, or just kind of shows it in a different context, different light or whatever. And those are great. I really like those. And I mentioned to him that like I have my Naruto video where I'm analyzing OPs and EDs, talking about them. And I mentioned about like the placement's really important. I prefer when the episode starts with the OP. I'm not usually a fan of cold opens almost ever. I think they're almost usually like, it makes the OP kind of trivial. It kind of trivializes it in my opinion. Anyway, but yeah, he also mentions the Eva credits, the end of Evangelion, how it has the credits in the middle of the movie. And I think that was really interesting because it not only kind of gives it as an interesting divider between the first half and the second half, where that's the end, the where the credits hit, that's the end of the world at that point, and then the rest of the movie is sort of in Shinji's head, in a sort, or it's just like the fallout of that climactic moment. It also delineates episode 25 and episode 26, which are the two halves of the movie, and the title cards are in the movie as well. But then it also allows the credit, if the credits are in the middle of the movie. I had to do this for my Naruto video actually, because the thing is, right, this was what I ran into with my videos, where I had an ending for the video that I really wanted to end the video on. I didn't want to just have my patrons end it, like have the patrons show up at the end of the video, because I wanted the audience to just kind of excel out, like kind of drop them from the bottom, and I don't know, just end the video at this emotional crux and this high point for my Doremi video and for my Hinata video. So for my Doremi video, I put the credit, it was also the same for my Hosoda video too, and for both of, and so I don't know, Eon as well, like there was a span of my channel where I wanted to put the credit, my Dazaki video does this too. I wanted to put the patrons at the beginning of the video because I want the ending to be Kino. And then I realized how frustrating it is to rewatch these videos, because you kind of have to skip those, not that the patrons are, but it's those things that it's not necessarily the most glamorous voluntary thing, whatever. And I just, it does frustrate me seeing them in that I put them there, but I'm like, where else am I going to put them? I don't want them at the ending. I got this idea not from End of Evangelion, but from Hazel, actually. Hazel had put her patrons in the middle of the video, and it was like a little interlude, able to kind of take a break from the video, and she would talk during the credit roll and how she's doing and mentally and whatever, or just being a little more fourth wall breaky. Which is a really cool idea. I thought it was really good. And so I was like, where can I do that? I don't really want to just copy that wholesale. And it's weird for me to do that. Where should I do that? And I figured to do, I had the German Naruto OP that I remastered with, like, I just recreated it because I thought it was funny. I was going to put that at the beginning of the video, and then it's such a bad idea because viewership go whoop. Lose all the viewers, now that I lost them anyway, but anyway. But I was like, okay, I'll put them between two sections, like between section 2 and 3 or whatever, or between 1 and 2, I don't remember. And I'll run my list of patrons during that, and I can post it later, and I never posted it later, so I still have to do that. Anyway, sorry, it's a bunch about me for a long time. But yeah, I put them in the middle so that I could have a Kino ending. Anyway, that's the end of the story. Sorry. But yeah, the Sunny Boy, also mentioning the Sunny Boy didn't have any OP or any ED as well, or the ED is very simple. The credits are just a black screen and everything. Although, I correct me if I'm wrong, the Sunny Boy ED is different every time. Not every time. I feel like the EDs were not consistent. There was different songs. Because the Sunny Boy has like a really eclectic, interesting OST, a lot of insert songs. So I think that's its own kind of production. It's cool. It's a cool feature where there's no set OP, and I get it, because it's like, what really do you make this what kind of OP would Sunny Boy have? It's the kind of show that doesn't really make sense to have one, I think, and it adds to that mystery, because the OP not to say the OP spoils things, it can. But it gives the audience that, like, expectation, like Kill la Kill, right? you think of the Kill la Kill OP playing episode 2, and you see Satsuki having the Senkets, like the battle armor that's similar to Matoi's, and so you already know that they're going to fight in that capacity, right? Before they do episode 3. I guess that's a surprise. That's interesting, but you know that's going to happen because you see it in the OP. Stuff like that. But at the same time, it's like, what do you show for Sunny Boy at all? I don't know. Or it'd probably just be kind of flaccid. So it's cool that they just kind of ignore that and just spend more runtime on whatever stuff that they do. I did mention it in this as well, but I won't belabor the point here. But he does gloss over eye catches, which is disappointing. There's a lot of different eye catches that I think can be different depending on if the show uses this versus using this, why and why not. There's a lot of shows that don't have an eye catch, and so what kind of shows are they, and what typically do you have for that? There's also the fact that the eye catches very much delineate the A part and B part, which is like an anime pretty common term of there's certain staff that are handling different parts sometimes. You even have it in the Eureka 7 eye catch where it says A part end, or B part and then B part start, I think. But like A part end kind of deal. And it's not always right at the halfway point. At what point in the episode does it happen and the use for it. I feel like there was more to talk about than that. He just kind of moves on to the more interesting point about these expository intertitles that Monogatari has, and the bits of punctuation that they use, like Shimbo just uses a color to punctuate a scene in the Soul Taker. That was really cool. They also just talking about multi-segment shows like Nichijou. Onimai is actually like this as well, and it's interesting to think of what kind of shows make that choice and what are they, because I think it's based on what they're adapting. Onimai in particular is like a web comic type of form, not like the scroll vertical type of web comic, but like something you'd find on Pixiv, and it's very short chapters and very huge panels, so not a ton happens per each installment. So it's and there's not much of a chronology. It's very episodic. So they're adapting multiple of these stories, so they're kind of using it as punctuation, as here's this scene. Another show that does that, I did chapters for Aho Girl and the ramen. This is ramen show, something likes to eat ramen. It came out in 2018, I think. Distotech released it. It was cute, and it has a similar kind of 2 or 3 stories per episode type of thing. So and the structure influences the content, right? And it's a different experience. The structure informing mood is how you put it. It's also this metaphor you kind of threw out there with the food matters as much as the plate it's served on. I thought that was a really brilliant observation, even though you kind of move on from it. It's maybe that doesn't make any sense. I thought it was, and I put this in my comment because the plate is consistent, right? It's the episode length. Every episode of typical TV anime is 20 minutes. 22 because they get the OP and ED, but pretty much the same length, give or take a couple seconds. They can't be off. And that's really important because it's how do you fill an episode of stuff? No more, no less. Sometimes you can have something that a lot of information, a lot of stuff happening, but you only so much time to tell that stuff. And so it could be too much food on the plate and you notice it's too much food. And so, you think of it doesn't matter how good the food is, you eating it is going to be I'm not going to be able to finish this. And there's a sense of dejection out of that, right? I know it's a weird metaphor with food and anime is a different thing. But it's oh, I got to eat all of this on the plate. It's a little much for this episode. Or you have the whole plate, how big the plate is, and then you see the portions and they're smaller. It's that seems a little, I don't see as much morsel out of that. And it's, again, this metaphor isn't completely right because you make that judgment call right as you see the food, right as it's served to you, versus anime. You don't know if it's going to be not enough content or too much content or just right until the episode's done, until you actually eat it. It's having it served to you, but you're blindfolded and you're kind of getting it fed to you, and the quality is one thing or another, but you're just kind of, I don't know how much food I'm going to have. Again, I'm complicating the metaphor even further. But no, I really liked it. I thought it was interesting. He didn't say any of this, by the way. He just kind of throws it out there and just, I'm just throwing it out there. But yeah, as I do here, so yeah. But yeah, I just really like this discussion and everything, and always look forward to these episodes. They're really cool. Yeah. I didn't, you know what? I got so wrapped up in I just realized this. I got so wrapped up in writing that comment because you said that, and then I remember just now that you had like a few minute update. Let me watch that right now. Hold on. Yeah, I have the same problem. It's the time work-life balance thing. Literally today, I didn't remember. I literally forgot that I'm working out. I have a personal trainer that I'm working out with. It's my roommate, so it's okay. It's not gonna, I'm not like late to the gym or something, thankfully. But like I just forgot I had that, and I've been like steadily editing these closed captions, and then this other thing, and also I want to watch a ton of anime. Like I don't want to stop watching anime. That's a big thing for me too. And so it's like this thing with Digest. I'm just like, it collaborates the 3rd of February, and I would have wanted to have this like the 31st or 1st or something. But it is what it is. It's at the end of the day, the time stuff. They're not. I realized that we were talking about with AI art. Actually, I don't know why it's coming to this conversation. We realized I was having a discussion with AI art, and how it's made instantaneously, or relatively instantaneously, compared to the effort it would take for other artists and stuff. And I was thinking, to me, it's like the general public doesn't care how long it took to make. They don't know. They have no idea. They're only going to see the final result. So in terms of like consistency and regular uploads and stuff, I think people will notice in the short term. I'm sure people are wondering why this was late, right? I was like, what I hope he did this month's digest and stuff like that, or whatever. But like a month from now, or however long, all they're gonna see is the video is up, right? And then basically the time nobody scrutinizes how long it took to make something. Sometimes in the short term, for sure. Like we all noticed the gap of time between Avatar and Avatar 2. What happened there? It doesn't matter now though, because 2's out, right? And it's just now it's a thing. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I guess it's just a little words of encouragement, even though it's much encouragement for myself, because I'm struggling with the same thing. Oops, the battery stopped. I think you get what the end of my sentence was going to be. Anyway, that was pretty much it. Don't worry about it. I guess you can worry about it. I have to worry about it. Really great installment there. And I appreciate the discussion we had. It was really great. Mr. Cheese, you need to read Bastard, Kazushi Hagiwara's Shonen Jump classic. Yes, thank you. Somebody had to talk about Bastard. Actually, not just the OVA, but the actual manga. Like, read it. What's the arcs? What's the situation? Thank you. That's what I'm talking about. And I get that you want to hold your thoughts about the Linden Films adaptation because it's not done yet. But it is exciting that it does seem that it's like going further than the first arc. That is really cool. But yeah, I really appreciate it. Yeah. And, I would say that the one thing I do remember about it, that this was like, was just the deciding to kind of end the video on like talking about Dark Schneider as a character. To be perfectly honest, I felt like you were getting that point across pretty well throughout the video itself. I could kind of, the thing you were picking up, especially your intro, the way that you're describing it a lot and like in different ways. It reminded me of my section on Get a Robo, where I'm just kind of rattling it off and settling it in that way of just the vibe and what you're getting into type of deal. But yeah, like I did really enjoy this whole journey and everything, and really getting to understand it. Appreciate the lack of spoilers on the last 2 arcs. There's certain things you can kind of understand what's happening, but I think that was a good handling on that. I didn't feel like I was deprived of content at all, especially because you show stuff, and even out of context, it's like, wow. Yeah, wow. I remember you reading this and like posting stuff on Twitter as it was going. I'm just like, Jesus Christ. Who knew? I certainly none of us apparently. Literally every, anime community in general, we just saw the OVA because that was what was got to us, and that's all the impression we get, and we're like, hey, heavy metal references, and that's like all you ever hear about this damn manga. And it's so great to see that, like, it's kind of Gintama before Gintama, if that makes sense. And just like the sheer amount of stuff that this author was doing and his team and everything, going into his personal life, not personal life, I guess, but it's just the stuff that he was giving as a mangaka with these behind the scenes types of comics and stuff. It just seems very promising, feels very, I think you sold it really well. But then I'd say the ending, it's like kind of where do you go, how do you cap this off type of deal, when it's mostly that kind of like general video on it, when it's I don't know, I shouldn't say general, but it's like it's obviously very retrospective and history based, like then this and then this and then this, and you're going chronologically through the whole video, which again I think is useful for this series that very few people know about. Just made me think, it's like, okay, yeah. And then the ending with focusing on Schneider specifically, kind of the themes of Bastard. To be perfectly honest, I think I could kind of get those vibes. I think I said that before, but yeah, I could kind of glean that from this series and what's going on with it, what makes it actually special. So I mean, I don't know. I guess the ending didn't propel it, didn't cap off on a great finish, in my opinion. I don't know what's a better choice or what to improve on in that way. I guess I'm just communicating that it didn't fully work for me, I guess. But it's okay. I like the rest of it. I appreciate the rest. It's very good food. Yeah, very, very good. In a pit stop, Yu-Gi-Oh! Changed my life. You also put out the other OP video as well. Also launched your Patreon. Oh boy, but that's going well. Oh my gosh. But yeah, this is so exciting, and like I really liked the 'cause I didn't realize, I haven't watched like every one of your videos, but I really didn't realize that you had this thing going with every milestone you hit, you would go to a different sprite work area and kind of land yourself there. And then the million subscribers is your channel icon, kind of the Chrono Trigger Islands. That's like, I haven't played the game, sorry. But yeah, like that's such good lore. That's such good like channel shit. Like this, like, oh, I love that. And then some of the like the cute stuff with like IP and your fans with the Yusuke, the Yu Yu Hakusho scene. And it's just like a two image macro. Like it's so simple. It doesn't have a ton of stuff going on in it, but it's still like a very effective, really good moment pit for it, I guess, like a eye catch type of thing. Man. And yeah, I think the life story was definitely the most interesting part. I'd say that the vast majority of going through your journey, and you're a very good storyteller in that way. And I like how level-headed and honest, and by level-headed, I guess I just mean that like it didn't feel like you were bringing up anything petty or too sensitive or emotionally charged. I think despite this kind of, in a way, being an emotionally charged arc for you, I got it before I have it in my, I just flashed into my head, I don't want to forget about it, the shot where you realize that you're nothing, or you don't have an identity because you've kind of shaved it off, you kind of like shaved it off to be popular, and just having this emptiness. So that was fantastic. Loved the green screen reversing, and or just whatever you did. That was really cool. Really great visual for that. Again, you're very visually inventive consistently, and playful in a way that, like, even stuff that looks awkward, like, having the image of Naruto on the swing, and then you're like kind of sitting on it too almost, and it it looks awkward, but it's really endearing and charming in that way because you're going for it. You know what I mean? It's just like, I don't know. It's that YouTube thing of like keeping it real, you know, keeping it like earnest, and this is coming from you, and it's not just like, it's without any fear, you know, without any like, what do people think of me, which is very obvious from the story here about your being nerdy and stuff, and then trying to fit in and accept and reject the things that made you interesting, or not that they made you interesting, but the things that really made an impact on you, and rejecting Yu-Gi-Oh specifically, and even your other friends and stuff. And then really, you know, it's like I don't have to worry about those sorts of, I shouldn't pursue what's the popular thing in that way, just kind of be your own self. You know, it's interesting because like I think both the thumbnail and just the general perception of going into this video, the concept makes you think that Yu-Gi-Oh as a story is what changed your life. And it's an effect. I like that you really sell yourself as a dyed-in-the-wool fan for this particular series, with not just the manga, with like the anime, or and mostly the card game. It seems it was largely like a big fan of the game itself, which is fair. And then you know, watching the anime like religiously, but it's not like, and this is not a slight on the video. I'm just explaining what this is, articulating it. It isn't so much this story resonated with me and like I should be like this. Nothing like that at all. It was just sort of it was the thing for you that was a big factor in your life that you want to talk about with this betrayal arc that you've teased in the past. Which is it's exciting because it's not exciting is not right the word for it, I guess. It's engaging because it's not a betrayal on your part. It's not you being betrayed, it's you being the betrayer, which is like when you hear betrayal arc, you're like, oh, I was betrayed. But kind of the reconciling or the realization and admitting, you know, I appreciate that you were still brave enough to tell the story, even though it does not put you in a good light, you know. Although I think it does ultimately, because the redeeming factor was just the fact that you had the choice and you realized it within yourself, and nobody, Eric, for you know, the kind of the central person you end up betraying in a way, Eric is not the one that comes to you and shakes you out of it or anything. You kind of realize it within yourself, grow in a few years and mature, and then have this like thought of, oh, I want to get my other friend into Yu-Gi-Oh and embrace, you know, I at this point you're re-embracing this nerd stuff, and then you're like, oh, you know who would be into Yu-Gi-Oh, and you reconnect with Eric. The sheer bravery that you showed of walking up to his house and asking that is so rare, is so hard, because even people that you're not, I feel like a lot, and this is for me at least, people you're not even on unamicable terms with, like, oh, it's not like you had a falling out with this friend, but you've not talked with them in 10 years. I don't know how long it was of a time between that for you and Eric, but for me, it's like I have high school friends that I have not talked to since high school. And I don't know what they're up to. I don't know anything. I don't know if they know about me. And so it's weird. And so I always have this thought of like, if I reconnect with this person, we're going to be like strangers, and it's going to be awkward, and it's going to, I don't know, it'll be weird. And so like, I would love to talk with these guys again, just to see them again, really. But that's the barrier for that, right? So I mean, just the bravery that you showed in that story of like owning up to it and like really trying to reconnect with him redeems you. It doesn't, like, I think that you being a bully, and obviously the whole context of like, I don't condone that anymore type of thing. And he apparently wouldn't even that but much of a bully. Like, I think all of us kind of went through that at some point because we're shithead middle schoolers. as you've said, as you mentioned. But yeah, like I think that just the bulk of your IRL story, you filming the actual locations that you're still, the fact that you kind of still you have those stories and you go out and film those particular areas. I love that. I thought that was wonderful, and I'm really happy that you have a actual platform now that's sustainable, that you can make your job, that you've said you've kind of quit your job, which is great. That like you're able to just tell these IRL stories and it's a monetizable thing. Like, man, the life. Like, so good. It's just revelatory, really. But yeah, it was surprised. It's like, I guess it was just a tempering of my expectations of like, okay, it's not really so much Yu-Gi-Oh specifically, it just happens to be Yu-Gi-Oh. But you think of it with it's like, in this particular item, it was Yu-Gi-Oh that did this, it was Yu-Gi-Oh that did this, and it was Yu-Gi-Oh that did this, but not because of anything in particular special about Yu-Gi-Oh. It was just the thing, which is great. I'm not dissuading that or think it was a bad thing or a fault of the video or something at all. It's just sort of tempering expectations, I think, because yeah, I don't know. That's all it is, I guess. Yeah, love the video though. Really, really big fan of this, and really excited for your future endeavors that you get to go on. And I don't know if this means, I don't know what you're thinking of. Where, I mean, you did 2 videos this month, which is awesome. That's probably because I'm just thinking I would imagine if you have this suddenly getting this platform now and you can do this full time, do you go the same pace? Do you release at the same rate that you were beforehand? Or do you keep the consistency, the level of quality that you've had you've put the videos in, and you just release more of them? You know, because it's like, okay, because now that I do this full time, if I kept the same rate that I have been, you could do more, you could put more into the video. You could flesh it out more, be more creative, and put more into those videos. Or do you just release them more frequently at the same level that you have been already? Interesting quandary. I'm wondering your thoughts on that. But yeah, I just think it's all up from here, and I like that your video your channel ethos is very much up from here. Like, you're seeing the 1 million like in the clouds right there. Like, so cool, dude. Yeah, big fan. Yeah, love that. Jacob Geller, I think this is the first time I've talked about him on this channel, because he doesn't really talk about anime that much, but he did mention anime in this video, particularly Akira. It's the conceptual failure of orbital lasers. And when I clicked on this video, it was a pure whim. It was a pure I'm subscribed to Geller for I've known about his stuff since his video blew up on the decades-long search for Shadow of the Colossus: The Last Secret. Yeah, I'm from that period, but other stuff has gotten really good attention since then. That video is 5.6 million views. Woo! But yeah, his essays are really great, and I'm happy that he does a lot more on-screen presence as well, because I think he does have a very good on-screen presence. And this is like a good mix of that for him speaking in front of the camera, as well as cutting to various things. Where the orbital laser part, I thought it was like, oh, the drones that are doing the laser shows, and it's the failure. Like, this is a rot. I'm like, all right, but it's kind of an intriguing thumbnail. But no, by orbital laser, he means the fictional conceit of a space laser from space, like a satellite that shoots a big godlike laser and destroys anything it wants. And just this idea where, like, it's just about it, it's not really so much about like, oh, that's ridiculous, it'll never happen in real life, even though they wanted it in real life, apparently, according to Reagan. Like, he starts talking about like Reagan's anti-nuke type of thing. That was a good twist in the video. But talking about just the danger, and it sounds like you want a magic win button, but I don't know if you really want a magic win button. Not out of like, I don't feel satisfied with the victory or something. It's more like an arms race type of thing. It's the weapons facilitate war, not the other way around, where like, oh, we have a war, let's develop all these weapons. It's more like, let's develop all these weapons. Well, we gotta test them on something, and that's what leads to the war kind of thing. So it's like we invent these lasers. It's donezo. We're probably donezo. Yikes. But I'm bringing it up because there's a really great video, and kind of a central crux of it that it keeps coming back to is for Akira, with that particular laser that has 2 appearances in the movie, and then it's a lot more frequent in the manga, and has really cool. I don't know. I think he used it really well. I like how he shows the manga panels. It's not in a top-down like scroll up like this way. It's kind of a cool angle, shadowed lighting effect on it, kind of panning it up like this, and interesting. Kind of neat. I thought it was a well handled. Yeah, I just wanted to shout that video out because it was a lot of fun and interesting. Yeah. Sports anime from Labra Stories. This is a hell of a thumbnail, huh? And the opening to this video is interesting because it kind of goes through like a montage of random anime, where first it's like, or random clips, and the first like sports anime, and then the fourth one I didn't really know what you were going for until you explain it later of like, is DBZ a sports anime? Because you're showing like DBZ, Love Live, and show Washington like Lion show sports quote unquote anime, and that's the thing you want to talk about is this I guess a liminal space maybe is the word for it. It's this weird, you're trying to wrestle this idea where are these series that feel like sports anime, are they sports anime? And look, so I like this idea a lot. I do like the conceit of the video, but it's, I don't know if I'm confusing it with a different video that I watched and I'm not going to talk about, where like very clearly there's certain things that you're just kind of glossing and speeding through and then leaving it in the script because you're not going to look into it. I couldn't figure the research of this thing, but then you researched this other thing and didn't get very far, couldn't figure it out. And then towards the end of the video, you kind of correct yourself, and you're like scrutinizing your own work in the end of the video, which like I think if you want to have a commentary or like a reflection on that, you give it a few days and then look at it again, or you just keep in the drawing board, and if there's something bothering you, it's your video, you can edit it, you can change certain things, delete certain stuff, and whatever you put in the video is there. But I think it may be one of those things where you're just going through the motion and you just got to get it out, perhaps. I don't know, there's just certain things about that and that vibe that I think sort of hindered the video for me, or just was hard to. The other thing that was difficult about it is, I don't know what the scripting doesn't feel like a video script. It feels like a part rant, like a Discord thing that you would just keep typing and typing and typing and typing, and kind of also like a college essay where you're just kind of words and words and words and words, and let's define this and let's figure this out and let's scrutinize this and let's do, and it's very like and it, it's followable well enough, but it's just a lot of words. It's just sort of a lot of, it's very dense, I suppose, in a way that doesn't feel satisfying to a viewer. At least for me, I'm just one viewer, and if other people want to corroborate, whatever. I think it was just something that felt very like and overly scrutinizing, I guess, where there's this like, I feel like kind of missing the forest for the trees here a little bit, because this idea of because you're trying to be like, what's competition, what's this, what's it? And you're just really, it felt like overthinking almost. And I don't want to say I figured it out, it's just like this, or I don't want to discourage your all the work you put in really scrutinizing and thinking about this idea of whether chess is a sport or not. And oh my god, it's like a tornado out, like literally. Power could go out any moment. But yeah, I don't know if that's too bothersome. I'm sorry. But yeah, I don't want to like actually your video, especially because you put way more actual thought into it. But one thing I do want to contribute, offer you, is the history of, you know, I'm going to say storytelling. It's a broad term, obviously. For shonen, battle shonen particularly, I have, you know, people are probably going to steal it at this point because I've talked about this on Digest a long time, and now I'm, you know, I still haven't, I don't know when I'll be making this video. I've been wanting to make a video about Shonen Jump and battle shonen and really arguing for it being a actual genre, battle shonen being a genre, even though it's like, it's a demographic, right? It's because the history of it, really what the genre is, to it very simplify it, it is taking anything, it is taking whatever your subject is and gamifying it, turning it into a sport effectively. And what, you know, gamifying it, I think, is a more broader way to put it. But like, because we call football games, right? But there was like, sport is the nebulous part that you're really trying to fit in and everything. And what's a sport particularly, or competition. And then you kind of got into this tangent of like, what is art? Because you're trying to like get into this subjective angle. But anyway, I don't want to tangent off my point. I'm also unscripted. That's the other thing I want to, I'll probably be very rambly and dense and tangenty everything too. But the difference is I'm recording this live and and I don't do much editing or like meticulous note taking for most of the videos. So that's why it's, you know, anyway. But yeah, it really is, because sports manga was huge. It was a very, like, one of the most dominant genres in shonen magazines. There were several dominant genres. It was kind of a, you know, a lot of different stuff. And battle shonen effectively is putting all of those dominant genres together. They're taking the best qualities, and that's why it's the most broadly appealing and effective and highest selling, in my view. It's why we like them so much. It's because it's taking all these best elements, and it's the best of all these worlds, you know? And games are one of them. The sports aspect, and I think you don't really mention this too much, because there's not just rules. It's a system. It's hierarchy. It's positions. It's specialties. There's a lot of different things that, yes, Dragon Ball has, or whatever. And then you have like this like tangent about power creep, and like, just because a game has power creep, that doesn't make it a sport. I don't know if that's quite what you were arguing. I'm sorry, it's been like a two days since I watched this video. But like that was kind of weird about boiling all of Yu-Gi-Oh down to just it's all power creep. And yeah, it is having the problem that I am at least aware of. And Internet Pitstop actually vocalizes this too when he's describing that he doesn't really play it so much anymore, because it's Yu-Gi-Oh is more about how fast you can win. You know, it's optimized in a way that it's like, oh, you're done in one turn type of game. But it's like, you know, I think it's at that point, it's sort of, there's more to it than that. I think there's more to be said with like, okay, what if your opponent doesn't have that kind of deck? You know, because if we're thinking about the NFL or something, which like, yeah, physical sports don't have this like broken power creep type of thing, because people don't just get more stronger over time, you know, and injuries happen, and there's so much more to it that sports don't really have that problem. But that doesn't necessarily invalidate these other things qualifying as sports per se. I think that, I think broadly, I just want to say that I don't want to invalidate the video, but it does feel like semantics to me. It does. It's just sort of like, does it really matter that much if Hibike Euphonium is a sports anime or not? Like, is the story good? Like, is the show good? That's I really hate to boil it down, because obviously I'm overthinking a lot of other things in my own videos. You know, like, I don't want to say you're overthinking this. I really don't. I think it's just the way you went about it. It was harder to engage with as a viewer because you were just going on these like really exhaustive technicalities and really kind of granular stuff. But it's like for videos, and I don't want I don't know. I feel like I'm talking down to this, and I apologize. It's just for videos, you really need that like emotional. Why does this matter? Why should you care? Right? And I'm not saying it's like it's soulless or empty or I'm not trying to. I was interested. I really am. Because again, this is relating to that because I'm kind of arguing a similar thing of what makes it a battle shonen is an actual genre. The definition of, but I feel like your approach is going to be the definition of genre is this, and this is the history of it, and it's breathless. I feel like there's something that's just sort of like it doesn't get to the crux of it. It doesn't convince. And then again, I literally said in my first Naruto video that I'd rather people understand me rather than think I'm correct. And I think you actually say that more or less in the end of this video, that it's just like, I don't really know if I'm right. I just wanted to articulate, flesh out these thoughts. And I'm like, yeah, that's really the end of it. That's really the kind of like the general gist and why we want to make videos at all. So it's like, I can't knock you there. I think it was a video that I watched all the way through and I was engaged with. There's other videos I've watched for this digest and everything that I'm just like, I'm good. I'm not gonna touch it. I really think there's something here that was like really interesting, and you clearly had a lot of thought and like really really cared to pay attention to this sort of thing. I just wanted to vocalize my I don't know if I can call them qualms. Like my criticisms. That's a flawed video. I really don't. I really kind of cringe at that sort of talk. To me personally, at least, it's just sort of like okay. Yeah, like my Naruto video again. I like to take the word flaw out of the conversation, but yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to talk about it because I thought it was up for good discussion. I'm just like, oh, I see. I don't know if this was additive to you at all, but hopefully it was. It was interesting. I would guess you just check this video out. That's all I'll say. I think I said more than you said more than that, Shames. Like, yeah, and sorry. No, I did enjoy the video, and I also enjoyed talking about it, and I hope you found it interesting or valuable. Or something. Yeah. Okay, gosh, it's probably 3. This is separate recordings for digest, so I don't know if it's close to 3 hours. It probably is. We're here at last, and last one, best Oni manga from GaijinGuy. I have not talked about this guy in a while, probably because I haven't watched a lot of his videos. I don't know. It's just like I guess the subject or the thumbnails or something. It doesn't grab me as much or whatever. This did. I was like, okay, a little seminar. All right, I'll check it out. I'll peep it. This was fantastic. Very much recommended. Been a while since I talked about his navigating through the first issue of Shonen Jump, but this is like a older gentleman that's living in Japan that he basically wanted to study Oni and their application in manga, and so he's not, he kind of describes what Oni are and where they're coming from and stuff, but then the real fun part is he has the camera that's an overhead camera, and he has a bunch of manga laid out. And he does this fun thing where, and I guess I'll spoil it for you, but he does this fun thing where it's a bunch of manga laid out, but as he's removing one, there's something underneath it, and then you realize, oh, it's GaijinGuy. It's an art book from GaijinGuy, and then he brings out 3 more manga from just GaijinGuy, and he's like, oh, this is the guy. This is the GaijinGuy for Oni. And he has really great insights about GaijinGuy's work too. But then generally, yeah, like going through some of them are known, like Demon Slayer, Promised Neverland, and Urusei Yatsura, but then there's these other ones that are from the same author that I don't remember the name of, but I've definitely heard the guy before. I've seen his work. I don't remember what his name is. He doesn't have really any anime attached to him that I know of. It's not Imezu, it's not Ito. I don't remember his fucking name. But those were really interesting. And just like his selections where it's like, oh, a lot of these Oni are being shown in different ways in almost a sympathetic way. A lot of them are in a very sympathetic light, or in a way that's like complicated. They're not just monsters, right? I think was really cool. And then getting to GaijinGuy, where he has this 2889 Oni 2889, which is like a sci-fi one that like takes place in the far future, where like Oni are an invented creation by mankind. They're used for slaves, entertainment, and like treated like shit, like second-class citizens, whatever. And they decide to do a revolt and then travel back in time. And these are the ancient Oni creatures that just time travelers they're just monsters from the future that mankind invented. I think it's just such a cool idea. And apparently he wrote that before Devilman, and sort of like that was his transition to horror stuff that we know him for, you know? But before that, like up to that particular manga, he had done nothing but I don't say nothing, but like he was mostly known for the school ecchi comedies, Haruichi Gakuen, right? So that transition, I've never even considered that. I just kind of figured he was just this creative guy that one day decided to do this horror stuff. But the fact that he has a transition point, like a really inflection point between his Haruichi Gakuen and Mazinger Z or Devilman, makes sense, and it was just really interesting. And then he has a bit of a hot take that like Mazinger Z is kind of an Oni. He's designed as one, he's introduced as one, he has the horns, the grin, he's treated like a monster. It's like, oh yeah, no, I believe that. Talked a bit about Devilman as well. Yeah, I just really liked this like seminar kind of lesson type vibe. It's a little bit like what Oda King does, what Toshio Okada has been doing on his YouTube channel a little bit. I like how laid back and off the cuff it is, but it's very informational. Yeah, I don't know, I just really liked it. Just give it a listen, give it a watch. I really just like that he's like just flipping through these Japanese only copies of manga and stuff, and yeah, I don't know, it was really neat. I really enjoyed it. Yeah. Okay, I think that's it. It might be shy, it might be over, we'll find out. That'll do it for this installment of AniTube Digest. Thank you very much for watching. Let me know, please. This is at the end of the video. Why? Who the hell is at the end of the video at this? Please, in the comments, please let me know if you want me to keep doing this as monthly, giant hour-long, 2 hour, 3 hour. Let me know if this is good for you, because I am concerned that like I don't see as much engagement in the comments. I'm not like force you, you do whatever, but like I used to get more comments on digest videos, I think, than I do now. And I think it's a part of like, it's partly that like they come out less often, so people don't really remember them as much, and not as fresh as people's mind as like a weekly thing. But also it's just so much. It's like, what do you talk about besides like one video maybe or something? And or maybe it's just like a lot of videos had already come out and I'm already kind of late to the party type of it. Some of these came out literally January 1st or December 31st for one of them. So it's like, yeah, oh, thanks. I put this out a while ago or something. Is it late? Do you feel like it's late? Let me know, please. It's also really burdensome for me to make at the moment. I'll still do it. I still really want to do it, but I just want feedback for this particular one, I guess. Because it's like, it's a lot to watch. Like, this was, I tweeted it out. It was something like 43 videos, 16 hours of runtime. There's some that I would just like, I would stop midway through or whatever, but like, it's just too much for the few days. And it's on a 31st. It's not just like on a day of the week. It's like the 31st, gotta get it in or whatever. And it's, I don't know, it's hard. It's a little cumbersome for me. So, I mean, I don't want to change things up in the middle of a year or whatever. I'm definitely not doing, but but if it's really affecting it, where if even the viewer experience is not really that great, then why suffer? Why are we doing this? So I let me know, and based on that feedback, I might switch back to the weekly, or do something else. I don't know, but please let me know. Yeah. But I did hope you enjoyed this installment of AniTube Digest. Thank you very much for watching. You guys are great. You have a great week. You have a great month. You can tell how much I probably just want to go back to weekly, maybe regardless, but please let me know in the comments. Anyway, bye. Yo, peace.